When Diego Martinez accidentally shattered a priceless crystal vase at Michael Jordan's mansion, he thought his life was over. The 19-year-old gardener had only been working there for 2 months, and in one terrible moment, he destroyed something worth more than his entire year's salary. But what happened next shocked everyone who worked at the mansion and would change Diego's life in ways he never imagined. This is the true story of how one terrible mistake became the greatest blessing Diego ever received, and why Michael Jordan's reaction to that broken vase teaches us something powerful about what really matters in life. Diego was kneeling on the marble floor, surrounded by thousands of pieces of shattered crystal, tears streaming down his face. The entire household staff had gathered around him, staring in disbelief. The vase he broke wasn't just expensive, it was a precious gift from Michael Jordan's late mother, something completely irreplaceable. As Diego heard footsteps coming down the grand staircase, his whole body shook with fear. He looked up to see Michael Jordan himself walking toward him, his face impossible to read. Diego prepared for the worst. He was about to lose the job that paid for his sick grandmother's medicine, the job that kept them from losing their apartment, the job that was their only hope. But what Michael Jordan said next would surprise everyone in that hallway and set in motion a chain of events that would eventually touch thousands of lives across America. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear will change the way you think about mistakes, second chances, and what it really means to invest in people. This story proves that sometimes our worst moments can become our greatest opportunities, but only if someone chooses to see our potential instead of just our failure. Let me take you back to that foggy Tuesday morning when everything changed. Diego Martinez's hands trembled as he lifted the brass watering can. It was only 7 o'clock in the morning, but sweat already dampened his shirt collar. The grand hallway of Michael Jordan's mansion stretched before him like a museum, all polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and expensive silence. He'd been working here for exactly 2 months and 3 days. Every single morning, he counted his blessings. This job was a miracle. It paid 3 times what he'd made washing dishes at the diner. It meant his abuela, his grandmother Rosa, could afford her heart medicine. It meant they wouldn't lose their tiny apartment on the south side of Chicago. "Just focus, Diego," he whispered to himself. "One plant at a time." The Boston ferns needed water first. They hung in delicate ceramic pots along the hallway's east wall, their green fronds cascading like waterfalls. Diego moved carefully, stepping around the antique furniture, the Persian rugs, the pedestals that held various decorative pieces. He'd learned quickly that everything in this mansion cost more than he could imagine. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Eleanor Chen, had given him strict instructions during his first week. "See that vase, Diego?" she'd said, pointing to a crystal vase on a white marble pedestal. The vase caught the morning light, throwing rainbow colors across the wall. "That's Mr. Jordan's championship vase. His mother gave it to him after his first NBA championship in 1991. It's worth more than a year of your salary, maybe 2 years. So when you water the plants nearby, be very, very careful." Diego had nodded seriously. He'd been careful ever since. Every morning he gave that pedestal extra space, always aware of where it stood. But this morning was different. This morning, a thick fog had rolled in from Lake Michigan. It pressed against the mansion's tall windows, turning the world outside into gray soup. The hallway seemed darker than usual, shadows pooling in corners. Diego squinted as he moved from fern to fern, the watering can growing lighter with each plant. He finished the last fern and turned toward the fiddle-leaf fig tree that stood near the staircase. It was his favorite plant in the whole mansion, tall and proud, its large leaves spreading like green hands reaching for light. Diego stepped forward, his mind already moving to the next task. He needed to check the orchids in the conservatory, then trim the roses in the garden before the heat of the day. Then, his hip bumped something solid, the white pedestal. Everything happened in slow motion and too fast at the same time. The pedestal rocked. The crystal vase tilted. Diego's hand shot out, grabbing at air, trying to catch something. Anything. The vase fell. It seemed to hang in the air for a heartbeat. Beautiful, expensive, irreplaceable. Then it hit the marble floor. The sound was like thunder, like a gunshot, like the end of the world. Crystal exploded across the floor in 1,000 glittering pieces. Shards skittered across marble, some sliding 10 feet away, others bouncing and breaking into smaller fragments. The noise echoed through the hallway, up the grand staircase, probably through the entire first floor of the mansion. Diego froze. His watering can slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor, adding one more terrible sound to the disaster. Water pooled around his work boots, mixing with broken crystal. "No," he breathed. "No, no, 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 no." He dropped to his knees, his hands hovering over the destruction, not knowing what to touch first. The pieces were everywhere. The vase wasn't just broken, it was destroyed, shattered beyond any hope of repair. His chest tightened. He couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. Not this job, not this Vase, not today, not ever. Footsteps, fast footsteps coming from multiple directions. Mrs. Chen appeared first, rushing from the dining room. Her usually calm face went pale when she saw the floor. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh no," she gasped. "Diego, what? Oh no!" Antoine Dubois, the chef, emerged from the kitchen hallway, still holding a wooden spoon. His eyes widened behind his glasses. Marcus Webb, the security guard who'd been so kind to Diego since his first day, jogged in from the east wing. His friendly expression turned serious when he saw the destruction. More staff members gathered, the housekeepers, the assistant chef, everyone staring at Diego kneeling in a pool of water and broken crystal. "I didn't mean to," Diego heard himself saying. His voice sounded strange, distant, like someone else was speaking. "I was just watering the plants. I didn't see the pedestal. I didn't mean..." "That was Mr. Jordan's championship vase," Mrs. Chen said quietly. She wasn't angry. She sounded sad, which was somehow worse. "His mother gave him that vase, Diego. She passed away a few years ago. That vase was..." "Oh, Diego." The words hit him like punches. His mother. She's dead. The vase was from his mother. Diego's eyes filled with tears. He was 19 years old, kneeling on a marble floor, crying in front of his co-workers, watching his miracle job disappear in front of his eyes. "I'm so sorry," he choked out. "I'll pay for it. I know I can't afford it, but I'll work for free. I'll do anything. Please don't..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Please don't fire me. Please don't take away this job. Please don't let me fail my grandmother. Please, please, please." "Someone needs to tell Mr. Jordan," Marcus said quietly. Nobody wanted that job. Everyone knew Michael Jordan could be tough, demanding, intense. He was a legend, yes, but also a man who expected excellence, who didn't tolerate mistakes. And this was not a small mistake. "He's in his office," Mrs. Chen said. "He's been up since 6, working. He probably heard the crash." As if her words had summoned him, they all heard it. Heavy footsteps on the floor above. Footsteps moving toward the grand staircase. Everyone turned, looking up. Diego stayed on his knees, tears streaming down his face, broken crystal glittering all around him like fallen stars. His whole body shook. He thought about Rosa, waiting for him at home, about her medicine, her doctor's appointments, their rent due in 2 weeks, about how he'd promised her everything would be okay, that this job was their salvation. The footsteps grew louder, descending the stairs. Michael Jordan appeared at the top of the staircase. He was tall. Diego knew that from seeing him on TV, but in person, in this moment, he seemed even taller. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and black pants. His expression was impossible to read. Not angry, not kind, just looking. Diego forced himself to look up, to meet those famous eyes. He owed Mr. Jordan that much. He wouldn't hide from what he'd done. Michael Jordan descended the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. The staff parted, creating a path. He reached the bottom and walked toward the destruction, his eyes taking in everything. The broken crystal, the overturned watering can, the water, the empty pedestal, and Diego, kneeling in the middle of it all. Nobody spoke. The silence was suffocating. Michael stopped a few feet away. He looked at the shattered vase for a long moment. Diego saw something flicker across his face. Pain, maybe? Memory? Then it was gone, replaced by that unreadable expression. Diego found his voice, though it came out barely above a whisper. "Mr. Jordan, sir?" He had to stop and swallow hard. "I am so sorry. It was an accident, but that doesn't matter. I broke something precious. Something from your mother. I'll pay for it. I know I can't afford it, but I'll work it off. I'll do anything. Please." His voice cracked. "I need this job. My grandmother, she's sick, and her medicine costs so much, and—" He stopped himself. He was rambling, making excuses. He sounded desperate because he was desperate, but that didn't make it right. "I'm sorry," he finished simply. Michael Jordan studied him for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 30 seconds. The entire staff held their breath. Then Michael spoke, his voice quiet but clear. "Everyone leave. I want to talk to Diego alone." Shocked glances passed between the staff members. Mrs. Chen looked like she wanted to object, to somehow shield Diego from whatever was coming. Antoine shifted his weight uncertainly. Marcus's face showed sympathy, but also worry. But when Michael Jordan gave an order in his own home, you followed it. One by one, the staff filed out. Mrs. Chen touched Diego's shoulder briefly as she passed, a small gesture of comfort that made his tears flow faster. Marcus gave him a look that seemed to say, "Stay strong." Then they were gone. The doors to the hallway closed with a soft click. Diego and Michael Jordan were alone. Just the two of them, with nothing between them but broken crystal, spilled water, and the terrible weight of what Diego had destroyed. Michael pulled a nearby chair over and sat down. Not standing over Diego, but sitting, bringing himself to eye level. This somehow made everything more frightening. "Tell me about your grandmother," Michael said. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't kind either. It was something Diego couldn't identify, and that terrified him more than shouting would have. Diego's mind raced. This was it. The moment his whole life fell apart. The moment he lost everything. He took a shaky breath and began to speak, having no idea that this conversation, this terrible, awful morning, was about to change his life in ways he couldn't possibly imagine. Diego wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of dirt across his cheek. He looked at Michael Jordan sitting there, waiting patiently, and something inside him broke open. Not like the vase, differently, like a dam that had been holding back too much water for too long. "Her name is Rosa Martinez," Diego began, his voice hoarse. "She's 72 years old. She raised me since I was 15 because my parents died in a car accident." The words still hurt to say, even 4 years later. Michael's expression didn't change, but he nodded slightly, encouraging Diego to continue. "My mom and dad were coming home from my freshman basketball game. There was ice on the road, a truck slid through a red light, and—" Diego swallowed hard. "They died at the hospital, both of them, 2 hours apart." He stared at the broken crystal, seeing his own shattered life reflected in those pieces. "Abuela, that's what I call her. It means grandmother. She took me in without any hesitation. She was already working 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and working at a laundromat during the day. She never complained, not once. She just loved me." Diego's hands clenched into fists on his knees. "I tried to be good. I stayed in school, kept my grades up, played basketball like my dad wanted. But when I turned 17, Abuela got sick. Her heart. The doctor said she needed medicine, expensive medicine, and our insurance barely covered anything." "So you dropped out," Michael said quietly. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. Junior year, I got a job washing dishes at a diner on Western Avenue. Then I picked up weekend work doing deliveries. Then I started doing yard work for people in nicer neighborhoods." Diego looked up at Michael. "I tried, Mr. Jordan. I worked so hard, but it was never enough. The medicine costs $300 a month, and that's with the discount pharmacy. Our rent is $800. Food, utilities, bus fare. It all adds up so fast." He could hear the desperation in his own voice and hated it, but he couldn't stop. "I started rationing her pills, giving her one every other day instead of every day, just to make them last longer. She didn't know. I told her the doctor changed the dosage." Shame burned in Diego's chest. What kind of grandson does that? Lies to his own grandmother about her medicine? The kind who's desperate and scared and trying to save her life, Michael said. Diego blinked in surprise, but Michael's face remained serious. Unreadable. 2 months ago, Diego continued, I was working at this hotel downtown, trimming hedges and cleaning up the gardens. That's where I met Mr. Sullivan, James Sullivan, your estate manager. For the first time since the vase broke, Diego felt a tiny flicker of something other than terror, a memory of hope. The day had been hot, the kind of humid Chicago summer day that made the air feel thick as soup. Diego had been working since 6 in the morning, and it was nearly 3 in the afternoon. His shirt was soaked with sweat, his hands were blistered, but he kept working. He'd learned early that if you wanted to keep getting called back for jobs, you had to be the best worker they'd ever seen. So Diego treated every hedge like it mattered, every leaf he picked up, every flower bed he weeded. He was on his knees, carefully edging a flower bed with hand shears, because the power trimmer would have damaged the delicate plants when a shadow fell across his work. You always this precise? A voice asked. Diego looked up to see a well-dressed black man in his 50s, watching him with interest. The man wore an expensive suit despite the heat and carried himself with the confidence of someone important. Yes, sir, Diego said, wiping sweat from his forehead. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it right. These are just hotel gardens. Most people rush through this kind of work. Diego shook his head. Plants don't know they're at a hotel. They still deserve care. The man smiled. What's your name, son? Diego Martinez, sir. I'm James Sullivan. I manage a private estate here in Chicago. He gestured to the flower bed. You do all this today? Yes, sir. Started this section at noon. James pulled out his phone and took a picture of the pristine bed, the perfectly trimmed edges, the careful attention to detail. You looking for steady work, Diego? Diego's heart jumped. Steady work. Those were magic words. Yes, sir, anything. I'm a hard worker, I promise. I show up on time, I don't complain, James held up a hand, still smiling. I can see that. How are you with indoor plants? Delicate work? I can learn, sir. I'm good at learning. My mom, before she died, she kept a garden at our old house. Taught me about plants, how each one is different, needs different care. Diego stood up, nervous energy making him talk faster. I know indoor plants need different light levels, different watering schedules. I know you have to check the soil, not just water on a schedule. I know. You know a lot, James interrupted gently. Tell me something, Diego. Why do you need steady work so badly? Diego hesitated. The truth felt too personal, too heavy to share with a stranger, but something about James's kind eyes made him honest. My grandmother raised me after my parents died. Now she's sick, heart problems. The medicine is expensive, and I'm falling behind on everything. I need to take care of her the way she took care of me. James was quiet for a moment, studying Diego's face. Then he said, Mr. Jordan's estate needs a new gardener, indoor and outdoor. It's demanding work. He has very high standards, but it pays $22 an hour, full-time, with benefits including health insurance. Diego's legs almost gave out. $22 an hour? He was making 11 at the diner and 10 doing yard work, and health insurance, real health insurance that might actually cover Abuela's medicine? I won't let you down, Diego said, his voice shaking. I swear to you, sir, I will work harder than anyone you've ever hired. I'll learn everything. Can you start Monday? James asked. Diego couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears suddenly blurring his vision. James pulled out a business card. Come to this address Monday morning, 7 a.m. Wear work clothes. Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper, will show you around and explain your duties. He paused. Diego, I'm taking a chance on you. You're young. You don't have formal training. You didn't finish high school. But I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've learned to trust my gut. My gut says you're special. I am, Diego said quickly. I will be. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you so much. James shook his hand. One more thing. This is Michael Jordan's private residence. You'll probably see him around. Be respectful, be professional, and don't ask for autographs or take pictures. He values his privacy. Michael Jordan? Diego's eyes went wide. The Michael Jordan? The one and only. That a problem? No, sir, wow, I'll be professional. I promise. James smiled. I believe you will. See you Monday, Diego. That had been the best day of Diego's life. He'd run home, actually run, too excited to wait for the bus, and told Abuela the news. She'd cried happy tears and made him his favorite meal, rice and beans and her special chicken, even though it used up most of their food budget for the week. God is good, mijo, she'd said, holding his face in her weathered hands. He sees our struggles. He provides. The first month had been like a dream. The mansion was incredible, bigger than Diego had imagined, filled with beautiful things and beautiful spaces. The gardens were spectacular, both the outdoor grounds and the indoor conservatory with its exotic plants. Mrs. Chen had been patient, teaching him the specific care requirements for each plant. Antoine, the French chef, had started saving leftovers for Diego to take home to Abuela. Marcus had shown him around the security systems so he'd know which areas were off limits. The staff had welcomed him like family. And the paycheck, that first paycheck, Diego had stared at it for 10 minutes, not believing the numbers. He'd gone straight to the pharmacy and bought a full 3-month supply of Abuela's medicine. Then he'd paid their rent 2 months in advance. Then he'd bought groceries, real groceries, not just rice and beans, but fresh vegetables, fruit, even a small cake to celebrate. Rosa had cried again. You did this, Diego. You saved us. The second month had been even better. Diego had found his rhythm. He'd learned which plants needed attention when. He discovered he had a gift for understanding what plants needed, almost like he could sense when something was wrong. A yellowing leaf here, drooping stems there. He caught problems early and fixed them. James had told him he was the best gardener they'd ever had. Mrs. Chen had praised his work ethic. Even Mr. Jordan, on the few occasions Diego had seen him from a distance, had nodded in acknowledgement when their paths crossed. Diego had started to believe that maybe, just maybe, his luck had finally changed, that maybe he and Abuela would be okay. And then this morning happened. So that's why I need this job, Diego finished, looking at Michael Jordan through tear-blurred eyes. It's not just a job to me, Mr. Jordan. It's my grandmother's medicine. It's our apartment. It's everything. Michael Jordan sat quietly, his face still unreadable. The silence stretched out, broken only by the sound of Diego's ragged breathing. Finally, Michael spoke. James told me about you when he hired you. Said he had a feeling about you, that you were special. Diego's heart sank. He could hear the but coming. He was right, Michael continued. I've been watching you these past 2 months. You arrive 15 minutes early every day. You stay late to make sure everything is perfect. You ask Mrs. Chen about her daughter's college applications. You remember Antoine's wife's birthday. You help Marcus carry heavy equipment even though it's not your job. Diego hadn't known Mr. Jordan noticed any of those things. You treat the plants in my home like they're precious, Michael said, like they matter. Not because someone's watching, but because that's who you are. Mr. Jordan, Michael held up a hand. Let me finish. You made a mistake this morning. A big one. A costly one. That vase you broke? It wasn't just expensive, it was irreplaceable. Diego's chest tightened. Here it comes. You're fired. But I want to ask you something, Michael said, leaning forward slightly, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that? Yes, sir. If you could go back 2 minutes knowing what would happen, would you do anything differently? Were you being careless? Lazy? Were you rushing because you didn't care about your work? Diego thought about it carefully. He owed Mr. Jordan the truth. No, sir, he said quietly. I was focused. I was being careful, like always. The fog made the hallway darker than usual. The pedestal, I thought it was further away. I misjudged the distance. It was just a mistake. An honest, terrible mistake. But if I could go back, I wouldn't change how I was working. I'd be more aware of my surroundings. Michael Jordan studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly, as if Diego had just confirmed something he already suspected. That's what I thought, Michael said. He stood up, extending his hand to Diego. Get up. You shouldn't be kneeling in broken glass. Diego took his hand, confused, still waiting for the punishment he knew must be coming. Michael's grip was strong as he pulled Diego to his feet. "Come with me to my office," Michael said. "There's something I want to show you." Diego's mind raced. Was this where he'd be officially fired? Given papers to sign? He followed Michael Jordan out of the hallway, leaving behind the broken crystal that had destroyed everything. Or had it? Something in Michael Jordan's tone, something Diego couldn't quite identify, made him wonder if maybe, just maybe, this conversation wasn't going where he expected. But he didn't dare hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope could break your heart worse than any Vase. They walked through the mansion in silence, Diego's work boots squeaking slightly on the polished floors, his heart pounding so hard he was sure Mr. Jordan could hear it. Whatever came next would determine everything. Diego sent up a silent prayer to God, to his parents, to anyone who might be listening. Please, please let this be okay. Please don't let me lose everything. But deep down, he knew that sometimes prayers weren't answered. Sometimes you broke something precious, and there was no going back. Sometimes mistakes cost everything. The office door loomed ahead, and Diego walked through it, certain his miracle job was about to end, having no idea that what waited on the other side would be bigger than any miracle he'd dared to imagine. Michael Jordan's office was nothing like Diego expected. He'd imagined trophies everywhere, championship rings in glass cases, giant photos of slam dunks, MVP awards covering every surface. And there were some of those things. A basketball signed by the 1996 Bulls team sat on a shelf. A framed Sports Illustrated cover hung on one wall. But mostly the office felt normal. A large wooden desk, comfortable chairs, bookshelves filled with business books and biographies. Windows overlooking the gardens Diego had been tending. "Sit," Michael said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his desk. Diego sat, his legs shaking. His wet work boots left small marks on the carpet, and he tried to tuck his feet under the chair to hide the damage. Everything he touched today seemed to break or stain. Michael didn't sit behind his desk like Diego expected. Instead, he walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out at the morning fog that still hadn't lifted. The silence stretched. Diego's heart hammered against his ribs. His mouth was dry. Should he say something? Apologize again? Just wait? He waited. Finally, Michael spoke, still facing the window. "How old are you, Diego?" 19, sir. I'll be 20 in October." 19? Michael seemed to be thinking about something. "When I was 19, I was a sophomore at the University of North Carolina. I thought I knew everything. Thought I was invincible." He paused. "I was wrong about both things." Diego had no idea what to say to that, so he stayed quiet. Michael turned around, leaning against the windowsill. "You know what happened to me when I was 15? Same age you were when you lost your parents?" Diego shook his head. "I got cut from my high school varsity basketball team." Michael's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was talking about the weather. "Coach told me I wasn't good enough. Not tall enough, not skilled enough. Gave my spot to another player." Diego blinked in surprise. Everyone knew Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player ever. The idea of him being cut from any team seemed impossible. "I went home and cried," Michael continued. "Locked myself in my room and cried like a baby. Thought my life was over. Thought I'd never play basketball again." He crossed his arms. "You know what my mother told me?" "No, sir." "She said, 'Michael, this moment doesn't define you. How you respond to this moment, that's what defines you.' Then she made me go back the next day and ask the coach what I needed to improve. Made me face it instead of running from it." Diego's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. Why was Mr. Jordan telling him this story? "I worked harder than I'd ever worked at anything," Michael said. "Practiced every day, sometimes twice a day. Made the team the next year, then college, then the NBA, then championships." He moved away from the window, walking slowly around the office. "But I never forgot that moment, that feeling of failure, that fear that everything was over." He stopped in front of a bookshelf and pulled out a frame Diego hadn't noticed before. It was a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The headline read, "Jordan cut from varsity squad." "I keep this here," Michael said, holding up the frame. "To remember. Not to remember the pain, but to remember what the pain taught me." Diego's confusion must have shown on his face because Michael smiled slightly. The first expression other than that unreadable look since the vase broke. You're wondering why I'm telling you all this, Michael said. Yes, sir. Michael set the frame down and walked back to his desk. This time he did sit, settling into his chair and looking at Diego directly. That vase you broke this morning, my mother gave it to me in June of 1991, right after we won our first NBA championship. Do you know anything about that championship? A little, Diego said. You beat the Lakers, right? We did. But it wasn't just about winning. It took us 7 years to get there. 7 years of losing, of people saying we'd never win a championship, that I'd never win a championship. 7 years of doubt and criticism and failure. Michael's voice grew quieter. My father died 3 years before that first championship. He never got to see it. But my mother was there. She watched us win, and afterwards she took me aside. Michael's eyes seemed to look past Diego, into memory. She didn't have a lot of money. She'd worked hard her whole life, just like your grandmother. But she'd been saving up, putting away a little bit each month, and she bought me that crystal vase. Diego's stomach twisted into knots. Every word made what he'd done feel worse. She said, Michael, this is beautiful and fragile and expensive, just like success. You worked so hard for this championship and it's precious. But don't forget, things can break. Things can be lost. What matters isn't the things. What matters is who you become on the journey to get them. Michael leaned forward, his elbows on his desk. My mother passed away 3 years ago. Heart disease, like your grandmother has. His voice caught slightly on those words. That vase was one of the last physical things I had from her. Every time I walked past it, I thought of her. Her smile, her wisdom, her love. Diego felt tears running down his face again. Mr. Jordan, I'm so sorry. I can't. There's no way to. Let me finish, Michael said gently. Diego nodded, unable to speak. When I heard that crash this morning, I was upstairs on a conference call. I knew immediately what it was. You can't hear crystal breaking like that and not know. My first reaction was anger, pure anger. Someone had broken something irreplaceable. Michael stood up and walked around the desk, sitting on the edge of it, closer to Diego now. But then I came downstairs and saw you, 19 years old on your knees, crying, surrounded by broken glass, apologizing, not making excuses, not blaming the fog or the pedestal or anything else, just taking responsibility. He paused and something in his expression shifted. The unreadable mask cracked, showing something underneath, something that looked almost like understanding. And I thought about what my mother would say if she were here right now. Would she want me to punish you for an accident? Would she want me to destroy your future over a broken vase? Diego held his breath. Or would she want me to see this moment for what it really is? A chance to teach something important, a chance to show what truly matters. Michael crossed his arms, studying Diego carefully. James told me when he hired you that you dropped out of high school to take care of your grandmother. Is that true? Yes, sir. Junior year, I had to work. Did you like school? The question surprised Diego. Yeah, I did. I like learning, especially science. We were studying plant biology when I left, actually. It was interesting. What did you want to be before your parents died, before everything changed? What did you dream about? No one had asked Diego that question in years. The dream felt so far away now, so impossible, that talking about it seemed almost embarrassing. I wanted to work with plants, he said quietly, professionally, like go to college for horticulture, maybe work for a botanical garden or something, start a community garden in my neighborhood. Lots of kids there have never planted anything, never seen how things grow. His voice grew stronger as he talked. I wanted to teach them that if you can make something beautiful grow from dirt and water and sunshine, you can do anything. That growing things is like growing hope. He stopped, feeling foolish. But that was just a kid's dream. Reality is different. Michael Jordan looked at him for a long moment. You think dreaming big is foolish? No, sir. I needed to be realistic. Dreams don't pay for medicine or rent. You're right about that, Michael agreed. Dreams alone don't pay bills. But you know what does? Turning dreams into plans, turning plans into action, working so hard that the dream becomes reality. He walked back to the window, his back to Diego again. I dreamed of playing in the NBA when I was a kid in Wilmington, North Carolina. People told me it was unrealistic. Too many players, too few spots, too much competition. Then I got cut from my high school team and people said, "See, dreams don't come true." But I kept working, kept believing, and the dream became real. Diego didn't know what to say. This conversation had gone in directions he never expected. He'd come in here expecting to be fired, to have his life fall apart. Instead, Michael Jordan was talking about dreams and persistence and his mother's wisdom. "Mr. Jordan," Diego said carefully, "I don't understand. What does this have to do with the Vase?" Michael turned around. "Everything, Diego. It has everything to do with the Vase." He walked back to his desk and pulled open a drawer. Diego watched as he removed a manila folder, thick, official looking. When you make a mistake, a real mistake that hurts someone or damages something precious, you have two choices, Michael said, holding the folder. You can let that mistake define you, let it crush you, let it convince you that you're a failure who deserves punishment and nothing more. He set the folder on the desk. Or you can let that mistake teach you. Let it show you what you're made of. Let it become the moment that changes everything, not because of what you lost, but because of what you learned. Michael opened the folder and pulled out several papers. Diego couldn't see what they were from where he sat. "My mother taught me that people matter more than things, that potential matters more than mistakes, that second chances aren't just about being kind. They're about being smart enough to see value where others see failure." He looked directly at Diego, and for the first time since entering the office, Diego saw real emotion in those famous eyes. Not anger, something else. Something that looked almost like respect. "So here's what's going to happen, Diego, and I need you to listen carefully because this is important." Diego gripped the armrest so hard his knuckles turned white. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. "You're not fired," Michael said. The words didn't make sense at first. Diego blinked, sure he'd heard wrong. What? "You're not fired," Michael repeated. "You're not paying for the Vase. You're not working for free or taking a pay cut or anything like that." Diego's mind couldn't process this. "But the Vase, your mother, is gone," Michael said softly. "She's been gone for 3 years. And if she were here right now, you know what she'd tell me? She'd say, 'Michael, you have a choice. You can cling to a broken vase and destroy a young man's future. Or you can let the vase go and invest in something that actually matters, a human life.'" He came around the desk and sat back on the edge, closer to Diego. "She'd tell me that you remind her of the people she valued most, the ones who work hard, who sacrifice for family, who take responsibility for their actions, who still have kindness in their hearts even when life is brutal." Diego couldn't speak. Tears were flowing freely now, but he didn't care. "But," Michael said, and Diego's heart clenched at that word, "there is something I need from you, something important." "Anything," Diego managed to choke out. "Anything, Mr. Jordan." Michael picked up the papers from the folder. "These are college enrollment applications. Community college, 4-year universities, technical schools. All of them have horticulture programs." He held them out to Diego. "You're going back to school?" Diego stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. I can't afford." "I have a foundation," Michael interrupted. "The Jordan Brand Education Fund. We provide full scholarships to young people who've overcome hardships and shown exceptional character. People exactly like you." The words weren't making sense. Diego felt like he was dreaming, or maybe having some kind of breakdown. "You'll finish your GED first. We'll get you a tutor, someone who can work around your schedule. Then you'll enroll in a horticulture program, a real one, a good one. Full scholarship, tuition, books, living expenses, all of it covered." "But my grandmother," Diego said weakly, "her medicine, our rent, I can't stop working." "Your salary here continues," Michael said. "Full salary. You'll work reduced hours, maybe 20 hours a week instead of 40, focusing on projects that align with your studies. We'll turn the gardens here into your learning laboratory." Diego's head was spinning. "And your grandmother's medical care? She's now covered under our employee health benefits. The comprehensive plan, Not the basic one. Her heart medication, her doctor visits, everything she needs, fully covered. This can't be real, Diego whispered. Things like this don't happen. They do, Michael said firmly. They happen when someone sees potential and decides to invest in it. They happen when someone makes a choice to value people over things. He set the applications in Diego's lap. But there's a condition, actually 3 conditions, and they're non-negotiable. Diego looked up, waiting, willing to agree to anything. First condition, you maintain good grades. I'm investing in you, but you have to invest in yourself too. Show me this matters to you. I will, Diego said immediately. Second condition, after you graduate, you work with my foundation to create that community garden and education center you talked about. The one where you teach kids about growing hope. We'll fund it. You'll design it and run it. Deal? Diego could barely breathe. Yes, absolutely. Third condition, and this is the most important one. Michael's voice grew serious. Someday, you're going to have employees. People who work for you, and one of them is going to make a mistake. Maybe a big one, maybe a small one. And in that moment, you're going to remember this day. He leaned closer. You're going to remember that you broke something precious and irreplaceable, and you're going to remember that instead of punishment, you received a second chance. Then you're going to give that same chance to whoever made the mistake. You're going to pay this forward. Diego nodded, tears making it hard to see. I promise. I swear to you, Mr. Jordan, I'll never forget this. I know you won't. Michael stood up and extended his hand. So do we have a deal? Diego stood on shaky legs and shook Michael Jordan's hand. The hand that had won 6 championships. The hand that was now offering him a future he thought was impossible. Thank you, Diego whispered. Thank you doesn't feel like enough, but thank you. You can thank me by making the most of this opportunity, Michael said, by proving that my mother was right, that people are worth more than things, that potential matters more than mistakes. He walked to the office door and opened it. Now I want you to meet someone. I need to make a quick call, and then we're going to share this news with the staff. They've been worried about you. As Michael picked up his phone, Diego stood there holding the college applications, his mind reeling. This morning he'd woken up grateful for his job. Then he'd destroyed something priceless and thought his life was over. Now he was holding papers that represented a future, a real future with education and opportunity and hope. But there was still something he didn't understand. Something that didn't quite make sense. Mr. Jordan? Diego said quietly. Michael paused mid-dial. Yes? Why? I mean, I'm grateful, more grateful than I can ever express. But why me? You don't even know me. I broke something you loved. Why would you do all this? Michael Jordan looked at him for a long moment. Then he said something that Diego would remember for the rest of his life. Because my mother taught me that the measure of a man isn't what he does when everything's going right. It's what he does when everything's going wrong. When I came downstairs this morning and saw you kneeling in that broken glass, crying, taking responsibility, worried about your grandmother before yourself, I saw character, real character, the kind that can't be taught or faked. He smiled slightly, and that's worth investing in. That's worth more than any Vase. Michael made his call. Diego heard him ask someone named James to gather the staff in the main hallway, and then turned back to Diego. Ready to face everyone? Michael asked. Diego thought about Mrs. Chen's worried face, Antoine's sympathy, Marcus's concern, all of them thinking he'd been fired, his life ruined. Ready, Diego said. They walked out of the office together, headed back to the hallway where broken crystals still lay scattered across marble floors. Back to where Diego's worst moment had happened. Back to where, somehow, impossibly, his life had just changed forever. And as they walked, Diego realized something. That terrible crashing sound this morning hadn't been the end of something. It had been the beginning. The staff stood in small clusters throughout the hallway, speaking in hushed voices. They'd cleaned up the water Diego had spilled, but the broken crystals still lay scattered across the marble floor. Thousands of glittering pieces that caught the morning light like fallen stars. Mrs. Chen saw them first. Her eyes widened when she spotted Diego walking beside Mr. Jordan, and she touched Antoine's arm, alerting him. Within seconds, everyone had gone silent, turning to face them. Diego saw the worry on their faces, the sympathy in their eyes. They thought they were watching a young man's last moments at his job. Marcus stepped forward slightly, his security guard instincts making him want to protect Diego somehow, though there was nothing he could do. Michael Jordan stopped at the edge of the broken crystal, surveying the damage once more. Diego stood beside him, clutching the college applications against his chest like a shield. "Thank you all for gathering," Michael said, his voice carrying through the hallway easily. "I know you've been concerned about Diego and what happened this morning." Mrs. Chen nodded. Antoine shifted his weight. The housekeeping staff exchanged glances. "Before we discuss that," Michael continued, "I want to tell you all something I've never shared before. Something about this vase." He gestured to the empty pedestal, then to the shattered remains on the floor. "Most of you know my mother gave me this vase in 1991 after our first championship. What you don't know is the full story of that gift." Diego watched as Michael's expression softened, his thoughts clearly traveling back in time. "My mother, Dolores Jordan, grew up poor in North Carolina. Her family didn't have much. Sometimes they didn't have enough. She learned early that money was hard to earn and easy to lose, that things, even beautiful things, were temporary. But she also learned something else." Michael walked slowly along the edge of the crystal field, hands clasped behind his back. "She learned that how you treat people, especially when they make mistakes, says everything about who you really are." Mrs. Chen's hand went to her heart. She seemed to sense where this was going. "My mother worked multiple jobs my whole childhood, cleaning houses, working in a bank, whatever it took to support our family. She was always tired, always stressed about money. But you know what? I never once saw her treat anyone badly because of a mistake." Michael stopped and turned to face his staff. "When I was 12, I was helping her clean a client's house, one of the wealthy families she worked for. I was dusting a shelf, and I knocked over an antique clock. It crashed to the floor and broke into pieces. Just like this vase." Diego's breath caught. He hadn't expected this. "I started crying immediately," Michael said, terrified. "That clock was probably worth more than we made in a month." The woman who owned the house came running. She started yelling about how expensive it was, how careless I'd been, how my mother should pay for it. Antoine shook his head disapprovingly at the memory of that long-ago woman. "My mother could have gotten angry at me, could have punished me. We couldn't afford to replace that clock. It would have meant skipping meals, falling behind on rent. But instead, she put her arm around me and told the woman, 'My son made an honest mistake. He's 12 years old. If you need to fire me because of it, I understand. But I won't punish a child for being human.'" Michael's voice grew quieter. "The woman fired her on the spot. We lost that income. Things got harder for a while, but my mother never blamed me. That night she sat me down and said, 'Michael, things can be replaced. People can't.' What that woman lost was a clock. What she could have gained was understanding and compassion. She chose wrong." Mrs. Chen wiped her eyes with a tissue she'd pulled from her pocket. "When we won that first championship in 1991, it was the culmination of everything. All my dreams, all my work, all my mother's sacrifices. The celebration was incredible, but afterward my mother pulled me aside to her hotel room. She had something for me." Michael smiled at the memory. "She'd been saving money for nearly a year, putting away $5 here, $10 there. She showed me her savings book, page after page of small deposits. She'd saved over $800, which was a fortune for her." He looked at the broken crystal. "She used that money to buy this vase. I told her she was crazy, that she should keep the money for herself, maybe take a vacation, or buy something she needed. But she insisted. She said, 'Michael, I want you to have something beautiful and valuable, something that reminds you where you came from and who you are.'" Diego felt tears building again. Every word made the weight of what he'd broken feel heavier. "She told me that the vase represented 3 things," Michael continued. "First, beauty. She said success should be beautiful, something you're proud of. Second, fragility. She said success is delicate. You have to protect it, nurture it, never take it for granted. And third, value. She said real value isn't just about money. It's about meaning, about love, about what something represents. He knelt down and picked up one of the larger crystal pieces, holding it up to catch the light. My mother passed away 3 years ago. Congestive heart failure. She was 75 years old. His voice wavered slightly, the first time Diego had heard any crack in his composure. In her last weeks when she was in the hospital, I brought pictures of my house to show her. The gardens, the rooms, the beautiful things. She saw this vase in one photo, still on its pedestal after all those years. She smiled and said, "Michael, you kept it safe." I told her, of course I did. It was precious to me. Michael stood back up, still holding the crystal piece. She said, "When I'm gone, I want you to remember something. That vase is just glass. Beautiful glass, expensive glass, but still just glass. What mattered wasn't the vase itself. What mattered was what I was trying to teach you when I gave it to you." "What was she trying to teach you?" Mrs. Chen asked softly. "That people are more valuable than things," Michael said simply. "That love expressed through sacrifice means more than any object. That holding on to possessions while letting go of human potential is the worst kind of waste." He walked over to Diego and put his hand on his shoulder. "When I came downstairs this morning and saw what had happened, my first reaction was pain. That vase was my last physical connection to my mother's lesson. But then I realized something." Michael turned Diego to face the staff. "The vase was the symbol, but Diego is the lesson itself. A young man who sacrifices for his grandmother, who works with dedication and heart, who takes responsibility for his mistakes without excuses, who still dreams of helping others even when his own situation is desperate." Marcus was smiling now, starting to understand. "My mother would have looked at Diego and seen herself. She would have told me that this moment, this exact moment, is why she gave me that vase in the first place. Not to keep on a pedestal forever, but to teach me this lesson when it mattered most." Michael addressed the whole staff now, his voice strong and clear. "So Diego's not fired. He's not being punished. Instead, I'm investing in his future. He's going back to school with a full scholarship from the Jordan Foundation. He'll study horticulture and eventually help us create a community education center. His grandmother will have full medical coverage, and he'll continue working here part-time while he pursues his education." The hallway erupted in applause. Antoine started it, clapping enthusiastically. Marcus joined in, his deep voice calling out, "Yes, that's right." Mrs. Chen was crying openly now, smiling through her tears. The housekeeping staff clapped and cheered. Even James Sullivan, who had appeared at some point during the story, was applauding from the back of the group. Diego couldn't speak. He stood there overwhelmed as these people, his co-workers who had become his friends, celebrated what felt like a miracle. Mrs. Chen rushed forward and hugged him tightly. "I'm so happy for you, Diego. So happy." Antoine clapped him on the shoulder. "You deserve this, mon ami. You work harder than anyone I've ever seen." Marcus shook his hand firmly. "Knew you were special from day one. Knew it." One by one, the staff members congratulated him, encouraged him, told him they'd known all along he had a bright future. Michael let them celebrate for a moment, then raised his hand for quiet. "But I want all of you to understand something important," he said, his tone becoming serious again. "What happened here this morning isn't just about Diego. It's about all of us. It's about the culture we create in this house." He looked at each staff member in turn. "Every person in this room is valuable. Every person here matters more than any object in this mansion, no matter how expensive or meaningful. And every person here will make mistakes at some point. That's not a possibility, it's a certainty. We're human. Mistakes happen." Mrs. Chen nodded, listening intently. "What defines us isn't whether we make mistakes. It's how we respond when we or others make them. Do we lead with compassion or judgment, with investment or punishment, with understanding or anger?" Michael gestured around the beautiful hallway. "This mansion is filled with valuable things, championship memorabilia, art, antiques, things I've collected over decades. But if I had to choose between keeping all of these things and investing in one person's potential, one person's future, I'd choose the person every single time." He picked up another piece of broken crystal. "My mother taught me that. She showed me through her actions. through her sacrifices, through the way she treated me when I broke that clock. She valued people over possessions, and that's the legacy I want to honor. Antoine spoke up. Mr. Jordan, what will you do with the broken pieces? Michael smiled. I'm glad you asked. I've been thinking about that. He walked to the center of the crystal field, careful not to step on the pieces. Diego and I are going to work together to turn these broken pieces into something new. I haven't decided exactly what yet. Maybe a mosaic, maybe an art piece for the community center he's going to build. But whatever we create, it will represent something important. What's that? Diego asked, finding his voice for the first time since entering the hallway. That broken things can become beautiful again, Michael said. That endings can be beginnings. That what seems like disaster can actually be opportunity, if we choose to see it that way. He looked at Diego directly. My mother's vase is gone. I can't replace it, and I won't try to. But what we're building from this moment, your education, your future community center, the lesson we're all learning together, that's worth so much more than crystal. Mrs. Chen raised her hand slightly, like a student in class. Mr. Jordan, may I say something? Of course, Eleanor. She stepped forward, looking at Diego with motherly affection. Diego, when you first started here, I gave you all those rules about being careful with valuable things. I told you about this vase, warned you how expensive it was. I made you nervous about every little thing you touched. Diego remembered. Those first few weeks, he'd been terrified to move through the house. I thought I was helping you, Mrs. Chen continued, teaching you to respect Mr. Jordan's property. But what Mr. Jordan just taught all of us is that I had it backwards. The property should serve the people, not the other way around. She looked at Michael. Thank you for reminding us what really matters. Thank you for showing us what true leadership looks like. Michael nodded his appreciation, but deflected the praise. I'm just doing what my mother would have done, what she taught me to do. He addressed the group one final time. I want all of you to remember this morning. Remember that when someone on your team makes a mistake, you have a choice. You can see only the damage, or you can see the person. You can focus on what was lost, or you can focus on what can be gained. Marcus spoke up. We'll remember, Mr. Jordan. I promise you that. Good, now let's clean up this crystal carefully. Diego, you're excused from that task. You've been through enough this morning. Go take a break. Maybe call your grandmother and share the good news. Diego's eyes widened. Abuela, I need to tell her. She must be so worried. I usually call her on my first break, but with everything, go, Michael said gently. Use my office if you want privacy. Take all the time you need. As Diego started toward the office, Michael called after him. Diego? He turned back. One more thing. I need you to make me a promise. The room went quiet again, everyone waiting. When you build that community garden, when you teach those kids about growing things and hope, I want you to tell them this story. Tell them about the vase you broke and what happened next. Will you do that? Diego's throat tightened with emotion. Yes, sir. I promise. I'll tell them. And tell them why you're telling it. Why? Because everyone makes mistakes. Everyone breaks things. Everyone has moments when they think their world is ending. But those moments don't have to define us. They can transform us if someone believes in us enough to help us see it. Diego nodded, too emotional to speak. Now go call your grandmother, Michael said with a smile. As Diego walked away, clutching his college applications, he heard the staff begin to clean up the crystal behind him. Their voices were warm, encouraging, speaking about the morning's events with wonder. He reached Michael's office and closed the door, then pulled out his old phone with shaking hands. He dialed Abuela's number, and she answered on the second ring. Mijo, is everything okay? You usually call earlier. Diego took a deep breath. Abuela, something happened this morning. Something big. He heard her sharp intake of breath. Are you hurt? Did you lose your job? No, Abuela, He paused, not sure how to explain it. How to make her understand that the worst moment of his life had somehow become the best. I broke something very valuable. Something that belonged to Mr. Jordan's mother. And then, Abuela, he gave me a scholarship. A full scholarship to go back to school. And your medicine, it's all covered now. Everything is covered. Silence on the other end of the line. Abuela! He heard her crying, soft, grateful sobs that made his own tears return. God is good, mijo, she finally whispered. God sees our struggles. He provides. He does, abuela, through people like Mr. Jordan, through kindness when we expect judgment, through second chances when we deserve punishment. They talked for 20 minutes, Diego explaining everything. The vase, the fear, the conversation, the scholarship, the future that had opened up before him like a door he'd thought was locked forever. When he finally hung up, he sat in Michael Jordan's office for a few more minutes, letting it all sink in. This morning, he'd been a 19-year-old high school dropout with no future beyond watering plants. Now he was a student, a scholarship recipient, someone with plans and potential and hope, all because of a broken vase. All because Michael Jordan had chosen to honor his mother's memory not by clinging to her gift, but by living out her lesson. People over things, potential over mistakes, future over past. Diego looked down at the college applications in his lap and made a silent promise, not just to Mr. Jordan or his mother's memory, but to himself. I will make the most of this chance. I will work harder than I've ever worked. I will earn this investment. And someday I will pass this gift forward to someone else who needs it. It was a promise he would keep, but first he had a lot of work to do. And for the first time in 4 years, since that terrible day his parents died, Diego Martinez felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. 3 days had passed since the morning that changed everything. Diego had spent those days in a strange fog of disbelief and gratitude, half expecting to wake up and discover it had all been a dream. But it wasn't a dream. On Wednesday, a package arrived with his name on it. GED study materials and information about tutoring sessions that would start the following week. On Thursday, Mrs. Chen handed him paperwork for Rose's new health insurance, her eyes twinkling as she explained the comprehensive coverage. On Friday morning, James Sullivan called him into his office to discuss the new part-time work schedule that would begin once Diego started his studies. Everything was real. Everything was happening. Now it was Friday afternoon, and Diego was in the greenhouse checking the moisture levels in the orchid soil when Marcus appeared at the door. Diego, Mr. Jordan wants to see you in his office. Diego's stomach clenched automatically. The fear response hadn't entirely disappeared, but Marcus was smiling, so it couldn't be bad news. Did he say why? Nope. Just said to come when you had a minute. Marcus winked. Don't look so worried, man. I think those days are over for you. Diego washed his hands, brushed dirt off his work pants, and made his way to the office. He knocked on the partially open door. Come in, Diego, Michael's voice called. Diego entered to find Michael standing by the bookshelves, studying something on the wall. He turned when Diego entered and gestured for him to come closer. I want to show you something, Michael said. Something I mentioned the other day, but didn't really explain. He pointed to a section of wall Diego hadn't paid much attention to before. It was tucked in the corner, away from the championship photos and awards. This wall held framed newspaper clippings, magazine articles, and printed headlines. Diego stepped closer and began to read them. Jordan cut from high school team. Bulls swept in playoffs. Jordan not enough. Another scoring title, still no championship for Michael. Jordan's gamble fails, baseball career fizzles, Wizards struggle despite Jordan's return. There were at least 20 of them, each one highlighting a failure, a loss, a moment when things went wrong. You keep these? Diego asked, surprised. Why would you want to remember the bad times? Michael smiled slightly. That's exactly what most people ask. My agent thinks I'm crazy. My friends don't understand it. But these articles are just as important to me as the championship photos. He tapped the headline about being cut from the high school team. This one taught me that other people's opinions about my potential didn't define my actual potential. The coach who cut me saw a scrawny sophomore who wasn't ready. I saw someone who would work harder than anyone else until he was ready. His finger moved to the playoff sweep headline. This one taught me that talent alone isn't enough. We had talent on those early Bulls teams, but we didn't have teamwork. We didn't have the right strategy. We didn't have mental toughness. We had to learn those things through losing. Diego listened, fascinated. This one, Michael pointed to the baseball article, taught me humility. I thought I could be great at anything just because I worked hard. Baseball humbled me, showed me that some dreams don't work out the way you plan, and that's okay. You learn and you move on. He stepped back from the wall, looking at all the failures displayed there. You know what every single one of these moments has in common? Michael asked. Diego shook his head. At the time, each one felt like the end of the world, like proof that I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't destined for greatness. Each one made me question everything. He turned to face Diego directly. But here's what I learned. Those moments weren't endings. They were education. Every failure taught me something I couldn't have learned through success. Every loss showed me a weakness I needed to strengthen. Every mistake revealed a lesson I needed to learn. Michael walked to his desk and sat on the edge, his usual spot. You know how many game-winning shots I missed in my career? No, sir. 26. 26 times my team trusted me with the final shot to win or tie the game, and I failed. I've missed over 9,000 shots total in my career. Lost almost 300 games. Failed over and over and over again. He paused, letting that sink in. And that's why I succeeded, because I wasn't afraid of failure. I learned to see it differently, not as proof of my inadequacy, but as information, data, feedback that helped me improve. Diego thought about the Vase, about his terror that morning, about how certain he'd been that his mistake would destroy him. When you broke that vase, Michael continued, you thought it was the worst thing that could happen. You saw it as pure failure, pure disaster, right? Yes, sir. I thought my life was over. But what did that moment actually teach you? Diego considered this carefully. It taught me that I'm not defined by my mistakes, that people can be kinder than I expect, that sometimes what seems terrible can turn into something good. Exactly. That moment educated you. It showed you something about character, about compassion, about second chances. It taught you lessons you'll carry for the rest of your life. Michael stood and walked back to the wall of failures. I keep these articles here because they remind me of three important truths. First, failure is temporary unless you quit. Second, mistakes only become disasters if you don't learn from them. Third, the path to success is paved with failures. You can't have one without the other. He pulled a frame off the wall, the article about being cut from his high school team, and handed it to Diego. Read the date on this. Diego looked. November 1978. I was 15 years old. If that moment had defined me, if I'd let it convince me I wasn't good enough, none of the rest would have happened. No college basketball, no NBA, no championships. Everything that came after started with this failure. He took the frame back and returned it to its place. Your Vase moment is like my getting cut moment. It feels like an ending, but it's actually a beginning. It's the moment your life changed direction. Years from now, when you're running that community center, teaching kids about hope and growth, you'll look back at this week as the week everything started. Diego felt emotion rising in his chest. Mr. Jordan, can I ask you something? Anything. How do you know I won't fail? How do you know I'll actually succeed in school, or build the center, or do any of the things you're investing in? Michael smiled. I don't know, not for certain. You might fail, you might struggle, you might make more mistakes. Diego's face must have shown his surprise because Michael laughed. But here's what I do know. You'll work hard, you'll care deeply, you'll take responsibility when things go wrong, you'll keep getting back up. And those qualities, those are what actually predict success. Not talent, not genius, not even opportunity. Persistence, character, heart. He walked to a bookshelf and pulled out a worn notebook. My mother kept journals. After she died, I found dozens of them. Years and years of her thoughts, prayers, observations. Michael opened the notebook to a page marked with a ribbon. She wrote this entry in 1984, right after I'd been drafted by the Bulls but before my first season. I was nervous, afraid I'd fail in the NBA, worried I wasn't ready. He read aloud. Michael called tonight, anxious about the future. I told him what I've always told him. Success isn't about never falling down. It's about how many times you get back up. It's not about making no mistakes. It's about learning from every mistake. The people who succeed aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who refuse to let failure have the final word. Michael closed the notebook carefully. That's what I see in you, Diego. Someone who gets back up, someone who learns, someone who won't let failure have the final word. Diego blinked back tears. I won't let you down, Mr. Jordan, I promise. I know you won't, but more importantly, don't let yourself down. This opportunity isn't just my investment in you, it's your investment in yourself. Michael returned the notebook to its shelf and gestured for Diego to follow him to the window. They stood side by side, looking out at the gardens Diego had been tending. See that rose garden? Michael pointed to a section with beautiful blooming roses in various colors. Yes, sir. Those are my favorite. The pink ones especially. You know why they're blooming so beautifully right now? Diego thought about it. Because they've been getting the right care? Proper water? Good soil? Enough sunlight? Exactly, but also because earlier this spring, you pruned them. Remember? Diego did remember. Mrs. Chen had taught him how to cut back the roses, removing dead wood and shaping the plants. It had felt wrong at first, cutting away so much. Pruning looks like damage, Michael said. You're literally cutting the plant, removing parts of it. If you didn't know better, you'd think you were hurting it, but you're not. You're helping it grow stronger, bloom more beautifully, reach its full potential. He turned to Diego. Sometimes life prunes us, cuts away what we thought we needed, removes what we thought defined us. It feels like damage, feels like loss, but it's actually preparation for new growth. Diego understood. My parents dying, having to drop out of school, struggling with money. Those were all pruning moments? Maybe. Or maybe they were just hard things that happened. Not everything has a neat explanation or a hidden purpose. Sometimes life is just difficult, and we have to survive it. Michael's honesty surprised Diego. He'd expected some inspirational speech about everything happening for a reason. But, Michael continued, we can choose what we do with the difficult things. We can let them destroy us, or we can let them shape us. We can become bitter, or we can become better. That choice, that's where our power is. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the gardens. Diego noticed details he'd never paid attention to before, how the different plants complemented each other, how the layout created natural pathways, how everything worked together to create something beautiful. Mr. Jordan, can I ask you one more thing? Sure. That wall of failures, when did you start making it? Michael thought for a moment. About 10 years ago. I'd been retired for a while, had time to reflect on my career. I realized I spent so much time displaying my successes that I'd almost forgotten the failures that made those successes possible. He smiled. My mother would have loved this wall. She always said, Michael, don't just remember when you won. Remember when you lost and what it taught you. She sounds like she was an amazing person. She was strong, wise, stubborn as hell. Michael laughed softly. She never let me get too comfortable with success or too discouraged by failure. She kept me balanced. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you, would have seen herself in your situation, working hard, sacrificing for family, staying hopeful despite circumstances. Michael checked his watch. Speaking of family, don't you usually call your grandmother around this time? Diego nodded. Every day at 3 o'clock, she worries if I'm late. Then go call her. But before you do, I want to give you something. Michael walked to his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out a small frame. Nothing fancy, just a simple black frame about the size of a photograph. This is for you, for your wall wherever you end up studying. Diego took the frame. Inside was a piece of paper with a quote written in elegant handwriting. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Below it, in different handwriting, Michael's Diego realized were additional words. For Diego, who showed courage when it mattered most. May you always remember that mistakes are not endings, but beginnings. Keep growing. MJ. Diego's hands trembled as he held the frame. Thank you. I'll keep this forever. Good. Look at it when school gets hard, when you doubt yourself, when you make mistakes. Because you will make mistakes. Everyone does. Let it remind you that the courage to continue is what matters most. Diego carefully tucked the frame under his arm. I should go call Abuela before she worries. Tell Rosa I said hello, and tell her that her grandson is going to do great things. As Diego walked to the door, he paused and turned back. Mr. Jordan, that wall of failures, are you ever going to add to it? Michael raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Well, you said every failure taught you something. Are there new failures? New lessons? Michael considered this. Every day brings new challenges, new ways to fall short, make mistakes, fail at something. Just last month, I made a bad business decision that cost the company money. Last week, I lost my temper with someone who didn't deserve it. He shrugged. I'm still learning, still making mistakes, still growing. That never stops, no matter how old you get or how much you accomplish. So you'll add those to the wall? Maybe. Or maybe I'll just remember the lessons without needing the headlines. Michael smiled. The point isn't to document every failure. It's to remember that failure is part of the journey, not the end of it. Diego nodded, understanding. Thank you for showing me the wall, and for everything else. You're welcome. Now go call your grandmother. Diego left the office, cradling the frame quote carefully. He made his way to the staff break room, where he usually made his daily calls, and dialed Rosa's number. She answered immediately. Mijo, right on time. Hi, Abuela. How are you feeling today? Good, good. The new medicine is working better than the old one. I have more energy. I even walked to the corner store this morning. Diego smiled, relief flooding through him. The comprehensive insurance had meant better medication, better care, and Rosa was already improving. That's wonderful, Abuela. Mr. Jordan says hello, by the way. Such a good man. Tell him thank you again from me. I will. They talked for 15 minutes about her day, her health, the neighbors, the small details of life that felt precious now that Diego didn't have to worry constantly about money. Before they hung up, Rosa said something that stayed with Diego. You know, mijo, your parents would be so proud of you, not just because of the scholarship or going back to school, but because of who you are, how you treat people, how you work hard, how you care. I learned from the best, Abuela, from you. And now you're learning from Mr. Jordan too. You're collecting wisdom from good people. That's the best education anyone can get. After the call ended, Diego sat in the break room for a few more minutes, holding the framed quote Michael had given him. He thought about that wall of failures in Michael's office, about how the greatest basketball player in history kept his losses and mistakes on display, not to punish himself, but to remember the lessons. Diego made a decision. He would create his own wall someday, not exactly like Michael's, but his own version. A place to remember the hard moments, the mistakes, the times he fell short, not to dwell on them, but to honor what they taught him. And the first thing on his wall would be a picture of a crystal vase, not the intact one. He'd never seen it whole, but maybe a picture of broken crystal, catching the light, beautiful even in its shattered state. A reminder that sometimes things have to break before they can become something new. Sometimes you have to fall before you can truly learn to stand. Sometimes the crash that seems to end everything is actually the sound of a new beginning. Diego stood up, carefully placed the framed quote in his backpack, and headed back to work. He had orchids to check, roses to tend, and a future to grow. And for the first time in 4 years, he wasn't just surviving. He was beginning to thrive. 18 months later, everything had changed and nothing had changed. Diego still arrived at the mansion 15 minutes early, still treated every plant like it mattered, still called his grandmother at 3 o'clock every afternoon. But now he did these things between college classes, study sessions, and tutoring appointments. The GED had been easier than he'd expected. All those years of loving school, of being curious about the world, had stayed with him. He'd passed on his first attempt with scores high enough to qualify for academic scholarships, which he didn't need, but which made him proud anyway. He'd enrolled at a community college that fall, taking general education courses while he prepared to transfer to a 4-year horticulture program. The classes were challenging but exciting. Biology, chemistry, environmental science, subjects he'd dreamed about studying back in high school, but thought he'd never get the chance to learn. His professors liked him. He sat in the front row, asked questions, stayed after class to discuss concepts he didn't fully understand. The other students, mostly 18-year-olds fresh out of high school, sometimes seemed annoyed by his enthusiasm. But Diego didn't care. He'd waited too long for this opportunity to waste a single moment of it. Now, on a crisp Saturday morning in early October, Diego stood in what used to be an empty lot on Chicago's south side. The lot was empty no longer. Construction crews had been working for 3 months, and the Jordan Gardens Community Center was finally taking shape. The main building's frame was complete. The greenhouse foundations were poured. The garden plots were marked and ready for soil. Diego walked the perimeter slowly, a clipboard in his hand, checking progress against the architectural plans. He still couldn't quite believe this was real, that he was actually building the dream he'd buried years ago. "Looking good, isn't it?" Diego turned to see Michael Jordan walking toward him, dressed casually in jeans and a Bulls jacket. It was rare for Michael to visit the construction site. He usually got updates from James or through video calls with Diego. But every few months, he'd show up unannounced, wanting to see the progress in person. "Mr. Jordan, I didn't know you were coming today. Thought I'd surprise you. How's everything going?" Diego gestured to the partially completed building. "Right on schedule. The contractor says we'll be weather-tight before winter, and then we can work on the interior through the cold months. Spring opening is still on track." They walked together along the marked pathways, Diego explaining his vision for each section. The teaching gardens where kids would learn to grow vegetables. The greenhouse for year-round, growing and exotic plants. The community space where families could gather, take classes, and share meals made from the garden's harvest. "And over here," Diego pointed to a corner plot, "this is going to be the memorial garden. A quiet space with benches, flowering trees, and perennials. I'm thinking it could be a place for people who've lost loved ones. Somewhere peaceful to remember them." Michael nodded approvingly. "That's a beautiful idea. Your parents would be honored." Diego swallowed hard. "Actually, I was hoping, if it's okay with you, I'd like to dedicate that section to your mother, Mrs. Dolores Jordan. None of this would exist without her, without the lessons she taught you, and without you honoring those lessons." Michael stopped walking. For a moment, he didn't say anything, just looked at the empty plot where the memorial garden would be. "She would have loved that," he said quietly. "She would have loved all of this. A place where people learn to grow things, to create beauty, to find hope." He turned to Diego. "Yes, I'd be honored to have the memorial garden dedicated to her." They stood in comfortable silence, two people connected by a broken vase and a second chance, watching construction workers frame walls and pour concrete for a dream that was becoming reality. "You know what today is?" Michael asked. Diego thought for a moment. "October 14th? It's exactly 18 months since you broke that vase." Diego's eyes widened. "I didn't realize. I remember the date was in April, but I didn't know the exact—" "April 14th, Michael said. "I remember because it was the anniversary of my first playoff game ever. I've always paid attention to April 14th. Now I have another reason to remember it." He sat down on a stack of lumber, gesturing for Diego to join him. "Tell me about school. How are your classes?" Diego sat, grateful for the chance to rest. He'd been at the site since 7 that morning, and his feet were tired. "I love it, Mr. Jordan. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts, actually. There's this one class, plant pathology, where we study plant diseases. It's difficult. So much memorization, so many complicated processes. But every time I figure something out, every time something clicks, it feels like, like winning." Michael smiled. "That's how you know you're in the right field. When the challenge excites you instead of discouraging you. My advisor says I should consider graduate school after I finish my bachelor's degree. Maybe specialize in urban agriculture or community horticulture." Diego shook his head in wonder. "Graduate school? Me? A kid who dropped out of high school? Why does that surprise you?" "Because 2 years ago I was washing dishes and rationing my grandmother's medication. The idea of college seemed impossible. Graduate school? That was like dreaming about playing in the NBA. Not something for people like me." Michael leaned back against the lumber pile. "You know what I used to think wasn't for people like me? Success, wealth, influence. I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. We weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. My parents worked hard for everything we had. He looked up at the sky, watching clouds drift past. When I got to the NBA, when I started making real money, I felt like an imposter sometimes. Like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. Like someone would figure out I was just a kid from Wilmington who got lucky. But you weren't lucky, Diego protested. You worked harder than anyone. You earned everything. True, but luck played a part too. I was born with physical gifts, height, coordination, athleticism. I had parents who supported my dreams. I had coaches who saw potential in me. I had opportunities that not everyone gets. Michael turned to look at Diego directly. Here's what I learned. Success is never just one thing. It's not just hard work or just talent or just opportunity. It's all of those things coming together. And yes, some people get more natural advantages than others. That's not fair, but it's reality. He picked up a small rock and tossed it toward the future garden plots. But what you do with whatever advantages you have, that's what matters. I could have been born with all that physical talent and wasted it. You could have gotten this scholarship and wasted it. But we didn't. We don't. We work. We grow. We push ourselves to become more than we were. Diego thought about this. So it's okay to acknowledge that I got lucky? That you choosing to help me was lucky? It's not just okay, it's important. Recognizing the role of opportunity and other people's generosity doesn't diminish your hard work. It makes you grateful. And gratitude is what motivates you to help others the way you were helped. A construction worker called out to Diego, asking a question about the placement of electrical outlets in the main building. Diego excused himself and jogged over to consult the plans, pointing out the locations and explaining the reasoning. Michael watched him work. The scared, broken 19-year-old who'd knelt in shattered crystal was gone. In his place was a confident young man who spoke with authority about building codes and garden layouts, who commanded respect from workers twice his age, who carried himself like someone who knew his worth. When Diego returned, Michael stood up. "Walk with me. I want to see where the greenhouse is going." They made their way to the greenhouse site, where the foundation was already complete. Diego explained his plans for the structure, the materials he'd chosen, the climate control systems, the layout that would maximize growing space while allowing for student groups to move through safely. "I'm planning to grow some exotic species here," Diego said, his enthusiasm evident. "Things people in this neighborhood have never seen. Orchids, tropical fruits, unusual vegetables from around the world. I want kids to understand that plants are diverse, that there's so much more than just tomatoes and roses." "Like those orchids at the mansion," Michael said. "The ones you take care of." "Exactly. I've learned so much from those plants, and I want to share that knowledge. I want kids who've never left Chicago to see a bird of paradise flower or taste a dragon fruit and realize the world is bigger and more beautiful than they knew." Michael heard something in Diego's voice, a passion, a vision that went beyond just plants. "This center isn't just about gardening for you, is it?" he asked. Diego stopped walking and looked at the construction around them. "No, sir. It's about showing people what's possible. It's about giving them hope when life feels hopeless. It's about teaching them that they can create beauty even when everything around them feels ugly or broken." His voice grew softer. "When my parents died, I felt like my world ended. Everything was gray and hopeless. But then Abuela started showing me her little garden, just a few pots on our apartment balcony. She'd plant seeds and talk to them while they grew. She'd tell me, 'Look, mijo, yesterday this was nothing. Today it's a sprout. Tomorrow it will be a flower.' That's hope. That's growth. That's life continuing even when we think it can't." Diego's eyes were shining with unshed tears. "That's what I want to give people here. That feeling of planting a seed and watching it grow. That proof that beauty can come from dirt. That life can come from what looks dead. That tomorrow can be better than today." Michael put his hand on Diego's shoulder. "That's exactly what this place will be. Because you understand. You've lived it. You know what it feels like to be broken and then to grow again." They reached the greenhouse foundation, and Diego pulled out his phone to show Michael the detailed plans. The raised beds, the propagation area, the classroom space where he'd teach workshops. I've already been contacted by 3 schools in the area, Diego said excitedly. Teachers who want to bring their students here for field trips once we open. And there's a community organization that works with at-risk youth. They want to partner with us for a summer job program. We'd hire teenagers, teach them horticulture skills, pay them minimum wage, and give them work experience. That's perfect, Michael said. Employment, education, and empowerment all together. That's what I thought. Some of these kids, they're like I was, struggling, seeing no future, no opportunities. But if we can show them they're capable, that they can learn real skills, that someone believes in them. He stopped himself, aware he was rambling again. Michael smiled. Don't apologize for passion, Diego. That enthusiasm is what's going to make this place special. Anyone can build a garden, but creating a place that changes lives, that requires someone who genuinely cares. A car pulled into the construction site's temporary parking area. Diego shaded his eyes and then grinned. That's Abuela. She said she might stop by today. Rosa Martinez emerged from the passenger side of the car. A neighbor had driven her. She looked healthier than she had in years, her face fuller, her movements steadier. The comprehensive health insurance and proper medication had made a remarkable difference. Mijo, she called, waving. Mr. Jordan, what a nice surprise. Michael walked over to greet her, and she immediately pulled him into a hug. Over the past 18 months, she and Michael had developed their own relationship. She'd visited the mansion several times, bringing homemade tamales for the staff and treating everyone like family. Michael always made time to sit with her, asking about her health and sharing stories about his own mother. Rosa, you look wonderful, Michael said warmly. I feel wonderful. The new doctor, the new medicine, everything is so much better. She touched Michael's arm. Because of your kindness. Because you helped my Diego when he needed it most. Diego helped himself, Michael said. I just opened a door. He's the one who walked through it and built all this. Rosa looked around at the construction site, her eyes filling with tears. I remember when he was a little boy playing in the dirt, making mud pies and calling them gardens. His mother would laugh and say, Diego, you're going to be a famous gardener someday. And now look at what he's doing. Diego came over and put his arm around his grandmother. Come on, Abuela, let me show you the memorial garden area. I told Mr. Jordan we're dedicating it to his mother. As they walked together, Diego, Rosa, and Michael, through the half-built dream, Diego felt something shift inside him. For so long, he'd thought of himself as someone who'd lost everything. An orphan, a dropout, a kid with no future. But that's not who he was. Not anymore. He was a student, a scholar, a builder, a dreamer who was making his dreams real. He was someone who'd been given a second chance and was determined to give second chances to others. He was Diego Martinez, and he was just getting started. They spent an hour at the site, Rosa asking questions, Michael offering suggestions, Diego explaining every detail with boundless enthusiasm. When it was time to leave, Rosa hugged Diego tightly. Your parents would be so proud, she whispered. I wish they could see this. Maybe they can, Diego whispered back. Maybe they're watching. After Rosa left, Michael and Diego walked back to the center of the site. The afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the construction. I need to tell you something, Michael said. I've been thinking about it for a while, and today feels like the right time. Diego's heart skipped. Michael's serious tone made him nervous. What is it, Mr. Jordan? You remember our agreement? The 3 conditions? Of course, maintain good grades, check. Build this center with the foundation. We're doing it. And pay it forward someday? I'm planning on it. You're doing more than planning. You're already doing it. Michael gestured around them. This center is you paying it forward. Those kids you'll hire, those students you'll teach. That's the 3rd condition being fulfilled. Diego nodded slowly. I guess you're right. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yes. Which means, Michael continued, that our agreement is nearly complete. Come spring, when this place opens, you'll have fulfilled every condition. Diego felt a flutter of panic. Does that mean, are you ending the scholarship? The support? No, Michael said quickly. Nothing like that. The scholarship continues through your bachelor's degree, And if you do pursue graduate school, we'll talk about extending it. Diego relaxed slightly. What I'm saying is that you're no longer someone I'm helping out of obligation or charity. You're a colleague now, a partner, an equal. He extended his hand. I want you to start thinking of yourself that way. Not as the kid who broke a vase and got lucky, but as a professional, an educator, someone who has earned his place at the table. Diego shook his hand, feeling the weight of those words settle over him. An equal, a colleague, not a charity case, but a partner. I don't know if I'm ready to think of myself that way, Diego admitted. I know. That's why I'm telling you to start. Because if you wait until you feel ready, you'll wait forever. Confidence comes from acting confident, from stepping into the role even when it feels too big. Michael checked his watch. I need to get going. But Diego, one more thing. Yes, sir? Stop calling me sir and Mr. Jordan all the time. We're colleagues now, remember? Call me Michael. Diego's eyes widened. I don't know if I can do that. Michael laughed. Try. Just try. Start with when it's just the two of us. You can keep the formal stuff around other people if it makes you more comfortable, but between us, we're past that. He clapped Diego on the shoulder and headed toward his car. Diego stood in the middle of his half-built dream, watching Michael drive away. An equal, a colleague, someone who'd earned his place. The idea was terrifying and thrilling at the same time. But as Diego looked around at what he'd helped create, at the tangible proof of his growth and his work, he realized Michael was right. He wasn't the same broken kid who'd knelt in shattered crystal 18 months ago. He'd grown, changed, become someone new, someone who could build dreams, someone who could change lives, someone who was finally becoming the person he was always meant to be. Diego pulled out his phone and called Rosa. Abuela? Yeah, I'm still here. Listen, I just wanted to tell you something. I love you, and thank you for never giving up on me, for believing I could be more than my circumstances. He listened to her loving response, then added, I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to make Mom and Dad proud. I promise. And it was a promise he intended to keep. 5 years later, the Jordan Gardens Community Center gleamed in the early morning sun like a green jewel in the heart of Chicago's South Side. Diego Martinez, now 24 years old, stood at the entrance holding a microphone, his college diploma completed just 2 months earlier. His bachelor's degree in urban horticulture hung on the wall of his small office inside the center, a constant reminder of how far he'd come. Today was the grand opening, and hundreds of people had gathered for the celebration. Local news cameras captured footage of the gardens, now flourishing with vegetables, flowers, and fruit trees. City council members chatted with community leaders. Children ran excitedly between the greenhouse and the demonstration gardens, their parents calling after them to slow down. But Diego's eyes kept scanning the crowd for specific faces. There, Rosa sat in the front row, dressed in her best Sunday clothes, beaming with pride. Her health had remained stable, her heart strong thanks to consistent medical care and the reduced stress of financial security. Beside her sat Mrs. Chen, who'd become like a second grandmother to Diego. She'd attended every one of his college graduation ceremonies, first the GED ceremony, then his associate degree, and finally his bachelor's degree 2 months ago. Antoine stood near the refreshment table he'd personally catered, his chef's whites gleaming, sampling his own appetizers and nodding with satisfaction. Marcus stood with his teenage son, Marcus Jr., who'd been working at the mansion's gardens for the past year under Diego's mentorship. The boy had shown real talent and genuine interest, reminding Diego of himself at that age. James Sullivan stood with the construction manager, both admiring how the building had turned out exactly as planned. And there, in the back, trying to remain inconspicuous despite being 6'6" and one of the most famous people on the planet, stood Michael Jordan. Their eyes met across the crowd, and Michael gave him a subtle nod. You've got this. Diego took a deep breath and tapped the microphone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. The crowd quieted, turning their attention to him. 5 years ago, I was working as a gardener at a private estate. I was 19 years old, a high school dropout, struggling to afford my grandmother's medication. I had given up on my dreams because survival seemed hard enough without the luxury of hoping for more. He paused, letting his words settle. Then I made a terrible mistake. I broke something precious and irreplaceable. Something that belonged to someone I deeply respected. And in that moment, kneeling on a marble floor surrounded by broken glass, I was certain my life was over. Rosa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She'd heard this story before, but it still moved her. But something unexpected happened. Instead of punishment, I received compassion. Instead of anger, I received understanding. Instead of losing everything, I gained opportunity. Diego's voice grew stronger. Michael Jordan, whose mother's vase I broke that morning, made a choice. He chose to see potential instead of failure. He chose to invest in a future instead of dwelling on a past mistake. He chose to honor his mother's memory, not by clinging to her gift, but by living out her lesson that people matter more than things. The crowd murmured appreciatively, many turning to look at Michael, who remained standing quietly in the back. That choice changed my life. It gave me a scholarship to return to school. It gave my grandmother access to health care that saved her life. It gave me the chance to pursue a dream I'd buried so deep I'd almost forgotten it existed. Diego gestured to the building and gardens around them. But Mr. Jordan didn't just give me an education. He taught me something more important. He taught me that mistakes aren't endings. They're opportunities. That failure isn't final unless we give up. That the measure of a person isn't whether they fall, but whether they get back up. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, the same quote Michael had given him 5 years ago, now worn from being carried and read countless times. He gave me a quote that I've kept with me every single day. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Whenever school got hard, whenever I doubted myself, whenever I wanted to quit, I read these words and remembered that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about being afraid and continuing anyway. Diego looked directly at the young people in the crowd, teenagers from the neighborhood, some already enrolled in the center's pre-opening workshops. This center exists because someone gave me a second chance, because someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, because someone saw who I could become instead of just who I was. His voice took on urgency. And now I'm here to give you the same thing. This isn't just a garden center. This is a place where second chances grow, where mistakes become lessons, where failure becomes education, where dreams that seem impossible become real. He walked down from the small platform, moving closer to the audience. I know some of you are struggling. I know some of you have made mistakes. I know some of you think you've messed up too badly to deserve another chance. A few teenagers in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, recognizing themselves in his words. But I'm here to tell you, you're wrong. You do deserve another chance. Everyone does. Because that's how we grow. That's how we become better. Not by being perfect, but by learning from imperfection. Diego returned to the platform. Mr. Jordan taught me 3 important lessons that I want to share with all of you today. First, your mistakes don't define you. Your response to them does. Second, the people who succeed aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who refuse to let failure have the final word. Third, when you receive grace, when someone gives you a chance you don't deserve, you pay it forward. He looked at Michael again, his eyes shining with gratitude. So this center is my way of paying it forward. Every student who walks through these doors, every person who learns to grow something here, every life that changes because of what we build together, that's me honoring the gift I was given. Diego pulled out a prepared statement, his hands slightly trembling with emotion. I want to tell you about some of the people who will be working here. Marcus Jr., raise your hand. The teenage boy hesitantly raised his hand, looking embarrassed. Marcus is 17. 6 months ago, while working in Mr. Jordan's gardens, he accidentally damaged an expensive sapling. He was terrified he'd be fired. Instead, I sat with him and told him the story of a crystal vase. I taught him what I'd learned, that mistakes are teachers, not tragedies. Now he's one of our assistant gardeners, and he's teaching workshops on plant propagation. Marcus Jr. smiled, his embarrassment fading. Aisha Williams, where are you? A young woman in her early 20s stood up. Aisha started volunteering here 8 months ago while we were still under construction. She told me she dropped out of college, felt like a failure, didn't know what to do with her life. I told her my story. Now she's enrolled in community college studying environmental science, and she's our lead educator for youth programs. Aisha waved, her face glowing with pride. Ramon Santos, a young man, stood, grinning widely. Ramon came to us through a youth outreach program. He'd been in trouble with the law, made some bad choices, thought his life was over before it really started. We gave him a chance. He worked harder than anyone I've ever seen. Now he's our greenhouse manager, and he's mentoring other young people who need second chances. The crowd applauded each person Diego mentioned, recognizing the pattern of redemption and growth. These are just 3 of the dozens of people whose lives have been touched by the lesson Mr. Jordan taught me, and they'll touch dozens more, and those people will touch dozens more. That's how grace works. It multiplies, it spreads. One act of compassion creates ripples that never stop. Diego's voice caught with emotion. Before we officially open, I want to do something. Mr. Jordan, would you please come up here? Michael shook his head slightly, preferring to stay in the background, but the crowd began to applaud, encouraging him forward. He made his way through the audience, people reaching out to shake his hand or pat his shoulder. When he reached the platform, Diego turned to address the crowd. I told you about the vase I broke. What I didn't tell you is what Mr. Jordan did with the pieces. He gestured, and 2 staff members carefully carried out a large cloth-covered object, setting it on a stand beside the platform. Mr. Jordan kept every piece of that broken crystal, and together we worked with a local artist to transform it into something new. Diego pulled away the cloth, revealing a stunning mosaic sculpture, a tree made from thousands of pieces of crystal, each fragment catching the light and throwing rainbow colors across the crowd. The tree's roots were made from darker pieces, its trunk from medium tones, and its branches from the clearest crystal. Among the branches were leaves made from colored glass, and at the very top, a single piece of unbroken crystal caught the sun like a star. The crowd gasped at its beauty. This is what we created from something broken, Diego said softly. We took destruction and made it into art. We took an ending and made it a beginning. We took loss and made it into legacy. He read the plaque mounted at the base of the sculpture. Growth through grace, in memory of Dolores Jordan, who taught us that people matter more than things, and second chances matter more than first impressions. May all who enter here find room to grow. Michael's eyes were bright with unshed tears as he looked at the sculpture. His mother's broken gift transformed into something that would inspire thousands of people for years to come. Diego turned to him. Mr. Jordan, would you like to say something? Michael took the microphone, his voice thick with emotion. My mother would have loved this, all of it. The gardens, the center, the sculpture, but most of all, the people. The second chances, the grace extended and multiplied. He looked out at the crowd. When Diego broke that vase 5 years ago, I had a choice. I could see only what was lost, or I could see what could be gained. I could focus on the past, or I could invest in the future. I could punish a mistake, or I could create an opportunity. His voice grew stronger. I chose opportunity. And look what happened. Diego didn't just go to school, he excelled. He didn't just build a center, he created a movement. He didn't just receive grace, he multiplied it, sharing it with everyone he meets. Michael gestured to Diego. This young man has taught me as much as I've taught him. He's shown me that my mother's lessons still matter, still work, still change lives. He's proven that investing in people is never wasted, that believing in someone's potential can unlock things neither of you imagined. He looked at the young people in the crowd. So to all of you standing here today, wondering if you deserve a second chance, wondering if your mistakes are too big to overcome, wondering if anyone will ever believe in you, I want you to know something. Michael's voice rang with conviction. You are worth investing in. Your potential matters more than your past. Your future is not determined by where you've been, but by what you do next. And this center, these people, this community, we're here to help you discover that truth. He handed the microphone back to Diego. Thank you, Mr. Jordan, Diego said. Or as you keep telling me to call you, Michael. The crowd laughed at Diego's still awkward use of Michael's first name. Before we officially open, I want to make one final promise. To everyone here, to everyone who will come after, to the thousands of lives this center will touch. Diego looked at Rosa, at Michael, at his staff and volunteers, at the community that had gathered. I promise that every person who walks through these doors will be treated with dignity, that mistakes will be met with teaching, not punishment, that failure will be seen as education, not condemnation, that everyone will get the same grace that was extended to me 5 years ago. He raised his voice, because that's what my mother taught me, what my grandmother showed me, and what Michael Jordan proved to me. People are more valuable than things. Potential matters more than mistakes. And second chances aren't just acts of kindness, they're investments in a better world. Diego pulled out a large pair of ceremonial scissors. And now it's time to open that better world. Michael, Rosa, would you both join me? Michael and Rosa came forward, and together, Diego in the center, Michael on one side, Rosa on the other, they cut the ribbon stretched across the center's main entrance. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Children ran forward to explore the gardens. Parents followed, marveling at the beauty and possibility. News cameras captured the moment, broadcasting it across Chicago and beyond. As people streamed past them into the center, Michael leaned close to Diego. You did it. You built the dream. We did it, Diego corrected. I could never have done this alone. Maybe not, but you're the one who took the opportunity and ran with it. You're the one who turned a broken vase into all of this. Rosa hugged them both, tears streaming down her face. My boys, she said. Both of you. My beautiful boys who understand what really matters. They stood together, watching the community flood into the center, watching children discover the gardens, watching teenagers sign up for workshops, watching parents ask questions about classes and programs. This was what grace looked like when it multiplied. This was what happened when someone chose people over things. This was the legacy of a broken vase, not destruction, but creation, not ending, but beginning, not loss, but gain. Diego felt a tap on his shoulder and turned to find a young girl, maybe 10 years old, looking up at him shyly. Excuse me, sir. I heard you tell the story about the vase, about making a big mistake and someone being nice to you anyway. That's right, Diego said, kneeling down to her level. I broke my mom's favorite picture frame last week, the one of her and my dad before he died. And she got really mad and I felt so bad, and I don't know how to make it better. Diego's heart ached for this little girl carrying such heavy guilt. Did you break it on purpose? No, I was dusting like she asked me to, and I knocked it over by accident. Then it was just a mistake, an honest mistake? Have you told your mom you're sorry? The girl nodded. But she's still sad about it. She cries when she thinks I'm not looking. Diego thought carefully about his response. Here's what I learned about mistakes. Sometimes we break things that matter to people we love, and those people might be sad or angry for a while, and that's okay. They're allowed to feel those feelings. But if they're good people who love us, they'll eventually realize something important. What's that? That you matter more than the thing you broke? That loving you is more important than any picture frame? Your mom is sad right now because she misses your dad, and the picture reminded her of him. But she loves you, and when she's ready, she'll tell you that you're more important than any broken frame. The girl thought about this. You really think so? I know so, because that's what good people do. They choose people over things. The girl smiled slightly. Can I see the broken vase? The sculpture? Of course, come on. Diego led her to the crystal tree sculpture, and she stared at it in wonder. It's so beautiful. It doesn't look broken at all. That's because we didn't try to put it back the way it was. We made it into something new, something different, something that tells a story. The girl reached out tentatively, and Diego nodded that it was okay to touch it. She ran her finger along one of the crystal branches. Maybe my mom could do this with her picture frame, make it into something new. Maybe she'll get a new frame. Or maybe she'll realize she doesn't need the frame because she has you, and you're better than any picture. The girl hugged Diego suddenly, fiercely. Thank you. Then she ran off to find her mother, leaving Diego with tears in his eyes. Michael had watched the whole exchange. "And that," he said quietly, "is why this place matters. That's why what you're doing is so important." "She reminded me of me," Diego said, "carrying that guilt, thinking she'd ruined everything. And you gave her what I gave you, permission to forgive herself, understanding that mistakes don't define us, hope that things can be made beautiful again." They stood together, watching the girl reunite with her mother, watching her excitedly pull her mom toward the sculpture to show her the broken vase made beautiful. "The cycle continues," Michael said. "Grace multiplying, lessons spreading, lives changing. Just like your mother taught you," Diego said. "Just like my mother taught me," Michael agreed. "And now you're teaching it too. That's her real legacy. Not a vase on a pedestal, but a lesson that lives in people's hearts and actions." As the celebration continued around them, as people explored gardens and asked questions and signed up for programs and dreamed new dreams, Diego felt something profound settle over him. This was it. This was the promise fulfilled. The broken vase had become the Jordan Gardens Community Center. A moment of destruction had become a movement of creation. An ending had become countless new beginnings. And a scared 19-year-old boy who thought his life was over had become a man who helped others see that their lives were just beginning. Diego looked at the crystal tree sculpture sparkling in the sunlight, at Rosa laughing with Mrs. Chen, at Marcus Jr. showing younger kids how to properly hold a seedling, at Aisha explaining photosynthesis to a group of fascinated teenagers. And he made one final silent promise. "I will never forget where I came from. I will never forget the grace I was shown. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure that grace keeps multiplying, keeps spreading, keeps changing lives. Because people matter more than things. Because second chances matter more than first impressions. Because that's what Dolores Jordan taught her son. Because that's what Michael Jordan taught me. And because that's what I'll teach everyone who walks through these doors." It was a promise he would keep for the rest of his life. 3 years later, Diego sat in his small office at the Jordan Gardens Community Center, reviewing applications for the Summer Youth Employment Program. 20 positions available, over 200 applicants. It was the same beautiful problem every year. Too many deserving young people, not enough spots. He was 27 now, no longer the uncertain college student, but a confident professional. His master's degree in community development hung beside his bachelor's diploma, both framed identically, both representing dreams he'd once thought impossible. A knock on the door interrupted his concentration. "Come in," he called, not looking up from the applications. "Still working too hard, I see." Diego's head snapped up. "Michael, I didn't know you were coming today." Michael Jordan stepped into the office, looking around at the changes since his last visit. The walls were covered with photos, groups of students in the gardens, successful harvests, workshop participants holding certificates, the center's first graduating class of the youth program. "Thought I'd drop by unannounced. See how things are really running when you're not preparing for my visits." Michael smiled. "Looks like they're running well." Diego stood and shook his hand. They'd long since moved past the awkward formality of their early relationship. But Diego still felt a flutter of nervous respect whenever Michael appeared. "We're doing better than well. We just got a grant to expand the greenhouse, and 3 more schools have signed up for our field trip program next semester. And," Diego caught himself, "sorry, I get excited about the numbers. Don't apologize. That passion is why this place works." Michael sat in the chair across from Diego's desk. "But I'm not here to talk about grants and programs. I'm here to talk about you." Diego's stomach tightened. That serious tone made him nervous. "Is something wrong?" "On the contrary, something's very right. But it's going to require a decision from you." Michael pulled a folder from his bag. Diego had learned over the years that Michael always had folders, always had plans, always thought several steps ahead. "The Jordan Foundation is expanding our education initiatives. We want to create a national network of community centers like this one. Places that combine education, job training, and community building. Places that give people second chances." Diego's eyes widened. "That's amazing. How can I help?" "We want you to lead it." The words hung in the air between them. Lead what exactly? The entire initiative. You'd be the National Director of Community Education Programs. You'd help us identify cities that need centers, work with local leaders to build them, train staff, develop curriculum, oversee operations. You'd be taking what you've built here and replicating it across the country. Diego's mind raced. That sounds incredible, but I can't leave Chicago. The center here needs... You'd keep oversight of this center, but you'd hire a managing director to handle day-to-day operations, someone you trust, someone you've trained. Michael opened the folder. We've identified 10 cities to start with: Detroit, Atlanta, Oakland, Philadelphia, Phoenix. Places with communities that need exactly what you've built here. The foundation is prepared to invest $50 million over 5 years, but we need the right person to lead it. We need you. Diego stood and walked to his window, looking out at the gardens where a group of teenagers were learning about companion planting. He taught that class himself just last week. I don't know if I'm qualified for something that big. You weren't qualified to run this center either, by traditional standards. You were 24 with a brand new bachelor's degree, but you had something more important than traditional qualifications. You had vision, passion, and lived experience. Michael joined him at the window. Diego, you've proven you can do this. This center serves over 3,000 people a year. You've created jobs, changed lives, built something sustainable and meaningful. Now I'm asking you to help others do the same thing. Can I think about it? Of course. Take a week. Talk to Rosa, to your staff, to whoever you need to consult. But Diego, Michael's voice softened. Don't let fear make this decision. Don't let imposter syndrome convince you that you're not ready. You are ready. I wouldn't offer this if I had any doubt. After Michael left, Diego sat with the folder, staring at the maps and city profiles, the budget projections and timeline proposals. It was overwhelming and exhilarating in equal measure. His phone rang. Rosa's number. Hola, abuela. Mijo, you sound stressed. What's wrong? Diego laughed. Even at 79, his grandmother could read his mood through the phone. Michael just offered me a job, a big job, national director of a new foundation program. That's wonderful. Why do you sound worried? Because it's so big, abuela. 10 cities, millions of dollars, hundreds of people depending on me to get it right. What if I mess up? Rosa was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the wisdom of decades. Mijo, do you remember what you told that little girl at the opening ceremony? The one who broke her mother's picture frame? Diego remembered. I told her that mistakes don't define us. Exactly. And now you're afraid to take this opportunity because you might make mistakes. You see the contradiction? He did. But this is different. It's not just about me. If I fail, I let down all those communities, all those people who need... If you don't try, Rosa interrupted gently, you definitely let them down. If you try and make mistakes along the way, you learn and improve. Just like you've always done. Diego closed his eyes, feeling the truth of her words. When did you get so wise, abuela? I've always been wise. You're just finally old enough to listen. He could hear the smile in her voice. Take the job, Diego. Spread what you've learned. Help more people. That's what you're meant to do. 1 week later, Diego called a staff meeting. His core team gathered in the conference room. Aisha, now the education director, Ramon, the operations manager, Marcus Jr., who'd been promoted to head gardener, and 3 other key staff members. I've been offered a position with the Jordan Foundation, Diego began, National Director of Community Education Programs. I'd be helping build centers like this one in cities across the country. Aisha's face lit up. Diego, that's incredible. Congratulations, boss, Ramon added. You deserve it. Marcus Jr. looked worried. Are you leaving? Are you closing the center? No and no. The center stays open and I stay involved. But I'd need to hire a managing director to handle the day-to-day operations here while I focus on the national work. He paused, looking at each of them. Actually, I already know who I want for that position. Aisha, I'd like you to be the managing director of the Chicago Center. Aisha's mouth fell open. Me? But I'm only 26. I've only been doing this for 3 years. I don't have enough. You have exactly what's needed, Diego interrupted. You know this community. You understand the mission. You've lived the journey from struggling to thriving. You care about the people we serve, not just the programs we run. He smiled. Sound familiar? Those were the exact reasons Michael chose me to run this place when I was 24 with no experience. He saw potential. Now I'm seeing it in you. Aisha's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Then say you'll help me train other managing directors in other cities. Because I'm going to need your expertise. Yes, Aisha whispered. Yes, I'll do it. Ramon spoke up. What about the rest of us? How does this change things? It doesn't really. You all keep your positions. Aisha becomes your direct supervisor instead of me. I'll still be involved in major decisions, and I'll visit regularly, but the day-to-day operations will be in her very capable hands. Diego looked around the table at these people he'd mentored, trained, and grown to trust completely. You know what I realized this week? The measure of a leader isn't how well things run when they're there. It's how well things run when they're not there. I've been so focused on doing everything myself that I haven't fully prepared you all to lead. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the gardens they'd all built together. But that changes now. This isn't my center anymore. It's our center. It's the community center, and it will thrive because all of you are ready to lead it. Marcus Jr. raised his hand tentatively. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you scared, taking on something this big? Diego smiled. Terrified, absolutely terrified. But I learned something from a very wise man 8 years ago. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite the fear. He turned back to face his team. So yes, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. Because that's what you do when someone believes in you. You prove them right. And then you give others the same chance you were given. 6 months later, Diego stood in an empty lot in Detroit, looking at architectural plans for what would become the second Jordan Gardens Community Center. Michael stood beside him, both wearing hard hats as construction crews prepared to break ground. Feels familiar, doesn't it? Michael asked. Very, except this time I know what I'm doing. Sort of, Michael laughed. You know more than you think. Trust your instincts. A young woman approached them, Keisha Thompson, a Detroit native Diego had hired to be the local coordinator. She reminded him of himself 8 years ago, hungry for opportunity, full of ideas, uncertain if she deserved the chance. Mr. Martinez, the community leaders are here for the meeting. Diego noticed she called him Mr. Martinez, the same way he'd called Michael Mr. Jordan for years. Keisha, how many times do I have to tell you? Call me Diego. She smiled shyly. Sorry, it's hard. You're kind of a big deal. After she walked away, Michael nudged Diego. See? Full circle. Now you're the one trying to get people to drop the formality. Is this how you felt when I kept calling you Mr. Jordan? Exactly like that. Respected, but also wanting to connect as equals. They walked the perimeter of the lot, Diego explaining his vision for the Detroit Center, how it would be similar to Chicago's, but adapted for Detroit's specific needs and community. You've really thought this through, Michael observed. I learned from the best. You taught me that every community is different. Every situation requires adaptation, but the core mission stays the same. People over things, potential over mistakes, second chances for everyone. A car pulled up and a familiar face emerged. Rosa, now 82, but still insisting on traveling to support her grandson's work. Abuela! You didn't have to come all this way. Of course I did. This is your second center. I have to see it. She hugged him tightly, then turned to Michael. And you making my grandson work so hard. Michael hugged her warmly. He loves it, Rosa. You know he does. I know. I just like to give you trouble. She looked around at the empty lot. This will be beautiful. Just like Chicago. My Diego, building gardens all over the country. As the community meeting began, Diego presented his plans to the gathered Detroit residents. He told them about the Chicago Center, showed them photos and statistics, explained the programs and the impact. But mostly he told them the story of a broken vase, the story of a second chance, the story of how grace multiplies when we choose people over things. And as he spoke, He saw faces light up with recognition. People who'd made mistakes, people who thought their lives were over, people who needed exactly what he was offering: hope, opportunity, and the message that their past didn't determine their future. After the meeting, a teenage boy approached him. "Mr. Diego, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Is it really true about the Vase? You really broke something worth thousands of dollars and didn't get fired?" Diego knelt down to the boy's level, the same way he had with that little girl at the Chicago opening. "Every word is true. I was terrified, certain my life was ruined. But Michael taught me that moments of failure can become moments of transformation, if someone believes in us enough to help us see it. I got expelled from my last school," the boy said quietly, "for fighting. Everyone thinks I'm just a troublemaker now. Are you a troublemaker?" The boy looked down. "I was angry. My dad left. My mom works all the time. I felt invisible, so I acted out to make people notice me. And now I want to do better. But I don't know if anyone will let me." Diego put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "What's your name?" "Darius." "Well, Darius, I'm letting you. When this center opens next spring, I want you to be part of our first youth employment cohort. If you're willing to work hard and give it an honest try, we're willing to give you a chance." Darius's eyes widened. "Serious?" "Completely serious. That's what this place is for. Second chances, fresh starts, proving that your past mistakes don't define your future potential." The boy's face broke into a huge smile. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I won't let you down. I know you won't. And Darius, when you succeed here, when you turn your life around, I'm going to ask you to do something for me. Anything. Pay it forward. Help someone else the way I'm helping you. Keep the cycle going. I promise." As Diego watched Darius run back to his mother to share the good news, he felt Michael's presence beside him. "That never gets old, does it?" Michael asked. "Seeing that moment when someone realizes they get another chance." "Never. It's why I do this." Michael smiled. "My mother would be so proud. Of you, of what you've built, of how you've taken the lessons she taught me and spread it so far beyond what either of us imagined. I think about her sometimes, about what she'd say if she could see all this." "I know exactly what she'd say," Michael said softly. "She'd say, 'See, Michael, I told you people matter more than things. Look how one vase, one broken vase, changed so many lives.'" They stood together in silence, watching the Detroit community explore the lot, ask questions, dream about possibilities. "You know what the best part is?" Diego said. "What's that?" "In Chicago right now, Aisha is running the center beautifully. She's teaching what I taught her, which is what you taught me. And she'll teach others, who'll teach others, who'll teach others. The lesson keeps spreading." "Like ripples in water," Michael said. "One stone, one act of grace creates endless ripples." Diego pulled out his phone and showed Michael a text from Aisha. "Just hired our 100th youth employee. Every single one of them is someone who needed a second chance. Every single one of them is getting it. Thank you for teaching me how." Michael read it and nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. "That's legacy," he said. "Not buildings or programs or money. That, people changing people." 2 years later, Diego stood on a stage in Washington, D.C., accepting an award for community impact. 5 Jordan Garden Centers were now operating: Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, Oakland, and Philadelphia. 3 more were under construction. Thousands of lives had been touched. Hundreds of second chances had been given. The award wasn't what mattered to him. What mattered was the row of people sitting in the front section of the auditorium. Rosa, now 84, beaming with pride. Aisha, managing the Chicago Center better than Diego ever had. Ramon, now training operations managers for all the new centers. Marcus Jr., who'd just been accepted to a horticulture graduate program. Keisha from Detroit, who'd proven to be an incredible leader. Darius, the boy who'd been expelled, now a youth coordinator in Detroit helping other troubled teens. And Michael sitting at the end of the row, applauding but trying to avoid attention. As Diego gave his acceptance speech, he didn't talk about statistics or programs or budgets. He talked about a vase. 8 years ago, I made a terrible mistake, he told the assembled crowd of nonprofit leaders, philanthropists, and community organizers. I broke something precious and irreplaceable. In that moment, I thought my life was over. He paused, looking at Michael. But someone chose to see that moment differently. Someone chose to see potential instead of failure, investment instead of punishment, future instead of past. That choice changed my life. And because my life changed, thousands of other lives have changed too. Diego held up the award. This doesn't belong to me. It belongs to Michael Jordan, who taught me that grace isn't just about being kind. It's about being strategic. That investing in people, especially people who've made mistakes, creates returns that can't be measured in dollars. He set the award down and spoke directly to the audience. I challenge everyone here to think differently about failure, about mistakes, about second chances. Don't just offer them grudgingly, offer them enthusiastically. Look for the people who've messed up, who think they're worthless, who believe their story is over. And invest in them. Believe in them. Show them that their worst moment can become their best opportunity. As he concluded his speech, Diego said something he'd been thinking about for months. 8 years ago, a crystal vase shattered on a marble floor. That crash was the sound of something ending, but it was also the sound of something beginning. Every life we've changed, every person we've helped, every second chance we've given, all of it started with broken glass. He looked at the award again. So don't be afraid of broken things. Don't write off shattered dreams or damaged lives or people who've made terrible mistakes. Because sometimes the most beautiful transformations come from the most complete destructions. Sometimes what looks like an ending is actually a beginning. And sometimes a broken vase is exactly what the world needs. The audience rose in a standing ovation, but Diego barely noticed. He was looking at the people who mattered most, the people whose lives were intertwined with his, whose stories were part of his story, whose transformations were proof that grace multiplies infinitely when we choose to give it freely. After the ceremony, as people gathered for the reception, Diego found a quiet moment with Michael. I never properly thanked you, Diego said, for everything, for the scholarship, the opportunity, the belief, the patience, for changing my entire life. Michael shook his head. You've thanked me every day by living out the lesson, by passing it forward, by becoming someone who changes lives the way yours was changed. Still, I want you to know what it meant, what it still means. I know, Diego. Trust me, I know. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the reception unfold around them. Watching Diego's team network and share stories and inspire others. You know what I realized? Michael said. That vase breaking was the best thing that could have happened to it. Diego looked at him in surprise. Think about it, Michael continued. If it had stayed on that pedestal, it would have remained a beautiful object that only I saw. Only I appreciated. When it broke, it became something more. It became a story, a lesson, a catalyst for thousands of transformations. He smiled. My mother's gift ended up touching more lives broken than it ever could have intact. That's not tragedy. That's purpose fulfilled in an unexpected way. Diego felt tears building. I never thought about it like that. Neither did I until recently. But watching what you've built, seeing how far the ripples have spread, I understand now. That vase breaking wasn't the end of my mother's gift. It was the beginning of her legacy becoming bigger than she ever imagined. Rosa appeared, linking her arms through both of theirs. My boys, she said, both of you, still making the world better, one garden at a time. One person at a time, Diego corrected gently. Same thing, Rosa said. Gardens are people. People are gardens. Both need care, attention, patience, and love to grow properly. Michael laughed. Rosa, you should write a book. That's profound. I'm too old for books, but Diego should write one. Tell the whole story. Help people understand what we already know. What's that, Abuela? She looked at both of them, her old eyes still sharp and wise. That broken things can become beautiful again. That mistakes are teachers, not endings. That grace multiplies when we give it freely, and that the best investment anyone can make is in another person's potential. She squeezed their arms. Those lessons changed my Diego's life. They've changed thousands of lives through his work. Imagine how many more could change if everyone understood them. As the reception continued, as people congratulated Diego and asked questions about expanding the centers to more cities, as plans and possibilities multiplied, Diego thought about Rosa's suggestion. Maybe he should write it down. The whole story, from broken vase to blooming gardens, from terrified teenager to national director, from destruction to transformation, not to celebrate himself, but to spread the lesson further, to prove that second chances work, to show that people matter more than things, to inspire others to give grace the way grace had been given to him. The story of a broken vase that changed everything. The story of how one choice, one moment of compassion, created ripples that would never stop spreading. The story of how Michael Jordan's mother's lesson lived on, multiplying through Diego, through Aisha, through Darius, through thousands of people who would never know Dolores Jordan, but who benefited from her wisdom anyway. Yes, Diego thought. Maybe I will write it down. Maybe that's the next way to pay it forward. But for now, he had work to do. Gardens to build, lives to change, second chances to give, and a promise to keep. The promise he'd made 8 years ago on the day everything changed. The promise to never forget where he came from, to honor the grace he'd been shown, and to spend his life ensuring that grace kept multiplying, kept spreading, kept transforming lives. It was a promise he'd kept so far, and it was a promise he would keep for the rest of his life. Because people matter more than things, because second chances matter more than first impressions, because that's what Dolores Jordan taught her son, because that's what Michael Jordan taught him, and because that's what he would teach everyone whose life he touched. One broken vase, infinite transformations. That was the legacy, and it was just beginning. 10 years after the vase, the auditorium at the University of Chicago was packed. Students, faculty, community leaders, and media representatives filled every seat with people standing along the walls. They'd come to hear Diego Martinez speak, not just as the national director of Jordan Gardens Community Centers, but as this year's recipient of the Presidential Medal for Community Service. Diego stood backstage, adjusting his tie nervously. At 29, he'd accomplished more than he'd ever dreamed possible. 15 Jordan Gardens centers now operated across the country. Over 20,000 people had participated in their programs. Hundreds of young people had found employment, education, and hope through the centers. But public speaking still made him nervous. "You look terrified." Diego turned to see Michael walking toward him, grinning. He was 62 now, with touches of gray in his hair, but still carried himself with that unmistakable Jordan confidence. "I've spoken to thousands of people before. Why am I so nervous about this?" "Because this one matters differently," Michael said. "This isn't a center opening or a fundraiser. This is your story, the whole story, the one you've been afraid to tell completely." Diego nodded. Michael was right. For years, he told pieces of the story, the vase, the scholarship, the second chance, but he'd never told the full emotional truth of it. Never revealed just how broken he'd been, how close to giving up, how certain that his life was worthless. Today, he would tell it all. "What if people think I'm being too dramatic, too emotional?" Michael put his hand on Diego's shoulder. "Then they'll think that, but the people who need to hear it, the ones who are broken and scared and convinced their mistakes have ruined everything, those people will hear truth. They'll hear hope. And that's what matters." A stage manager appeared. "Mr. Martinez, 5 minutes." Diego took a deep breath. "Okay, I'm ready." "You're more than ready," Michael said. "You've been preparing for this speech for 10 years. You've lived it. Now just share it." They walked toward the stage entrance together. Diego paused before stepping out. "Michael, thank you for everything. I know I say it often, but I need you to really hear it. You saved my life." "No," Michael said firmly. "I gave you an opportunity. You saved your own life by taking that opportunity and running with it. Never forget that distinction." Diego walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. He saw Rosa in the front row, seated in a wheelchair now but still sharp and engaged. Beside her sat Aisha, who now oversaw all 15 centers as Vice President of Operations. Marcus Jr. was there, having just completed his PhD in plant sciences. Ramon sat with his wife and new baby. Keisha had flown in from Detroit with Darius, who was now studying social work in college. Mrs. Chen sat with Antoine, both retired from the mansion but still attending every major event in Diego's life. James Sullivan was there too, the man who'd taken a chance on hiring an untrained teenager so many years ago. And Michael sat at the end of the front row, right next to the empty seat reserved for someone who couldn't be there, but whose presence Diego felt everywhere. The seat had a single red rose on it, a tribute to Dolores Jordan. Diego approached the microphone and looked out at the sea of faces. He saw professors and students, philanthropists and community organizers. People who'd heard about his work and people who'd been directly touched by it. He set aside his prepared remarks. This speech needed to come from his heart, not from notes. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "Before I say anything else, I want to introduce you to someone very important." He gestured to Rosa. "This is my grandmother, Rosa Martinez. She's 84 years old. She raised me after my parents died. She worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. She sacrificed everything so I could have a chance at a better life." The audience applauded, and Rosa wiped tears from her eyes. "Abuela taught me that love is action, not just words. That family means showing up, even when it's hard. That dignity matters more than comfort. Everything good in me started with her." Diego paused, gathering his courage. "But 10 years ago, I was failing her. I was 19, a high school dropout, working multiple jobs but never earning enough. My grandmother needed expensive heart medication, and I was rationing her pills, giving her half doses to make them last longer, and lying to her about it." He saw people in the audience lean forward, drawn into the honesty. "I hated myself for that, for being unable to provide for the person who'd given me everything. I felt like a failure, like I was worthless, like maybe the world would be better off without me." The room was completely silent now. "Then I got a job that seemed like a miracle, working as a gardener at a beautiful mansion, making 3 times what I'd been earning, enough to afford Abuela's medicine, enough to catch up on rent, enough to breathe again." Diego walked to the edge of the stage, closer to the audience. "For 2 months, I was so careful, so grateful, so determined not to mess up this incredible opportunity. And then one morning, I made a mistake." He told them about the Vase, about the fog-darkened hallway, the misplaced step, the terrible sound of crystal shattering, about kneeling in broken glass, certain his life was over. "I wasn't just afraid of losing my job," Diego said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was afraid of failing my grandmother again, of proving to myself that I really was worthless, of confirming what I secretly believed, that people like me don't get happy endings." He saw several people in the audience wiping their eyes. "Then Michael Jordan came down those stairs, and he made a choice that changed my life." Diego turned toward Michael. "He could have fired me, could have made me pay for the Vase, could have treated me like the careless failure I believed I was. Instead, he chose to see potential, to invest in possibility, to believe in me when I didn't believe in myself." Michael nodded slightly, acknowledging the tribute. "He gave me a scholarship to go back to school. He provided health care for my grandmother. He offered me a future when I thought I had none. But more than that, and this is the part I want everyone to understand, he taught me how to think about mistakes differently." Diego gestured to a large screen behind him, where an image appeared. The crystal tree sculpture, sparkling in sunlight. "This is what we created from that broken vase. We didn't try to glue it back together or pretend it hadn't shattered. We transformed it into something new, something that tells a story, something that inspires thousands of people every year." Another image appeared, the Chicago Jordan Gardens Community Center, vibrant and thriving. And this is what grew from that broken moment, a place where over 5,000 people a year learn that their mistakes don't define them, that second chances are real, that broken things and broken people can become beautiful again. Diego advanced through more images. The Detroit Center, the Atlanta Center, all 15 locations, each one teeming with life and hope and possibility. 10 years ago, I broke a vase worth thousands of dollars. Today, that broken vase has created opportunities worth millions, not in money, but in changed lives, in young people who found employment, in families who found community, in individuals who found hope. He paused, letting the images sink in. I'm standing here today not because I was perfect, but because someone saw past my imperfection. Not because I never failed, but because someone taught me that failure is education, not condemnation. Not because I deserved a second chance, but because someone understood that everyone deserves second chances. Diego looked directly at the students in the audience. Some of you sitting here today are carrying shame about mistakes you've made. You're convinced you've ruined your life, that you've disappointed everyone, that you don't deserve another opportunity. His voice grew stronger. I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. You do deserve another chance. Your mistakes are not your identity. Your past is not your destiny. And the lowest moment of your life can become the launching point for your greatest transformation. He advanced to another image, a young person planting seeds in a garden bed. This is Darius. 10 years ago, he was expelled from school for fighting. Angry, lost, convinced he was just a troublemaker, destined for prison or worse. Today, he's a social work student helping other at-risk youth. His story isn't unusual at our centers. It's typical, because that's what happens when we invest in people instead of writing them off. More images, success story after success story. Young people who'd made mistakes, received second chances, and transformed their lives. But here's what I want you to understand, Diego said. These transformations didn't happen because we were nice to people. They happened because we were strategic. Because investing in human potential, especially the potential of people who've made mistakes, creates returns that compound infinitely. He pulled up statistics, employment rates, college enrollment numbers, reduced recidivism, community impact metrics. Every dollar invested in second chances returns $7 in social value. Every person we help creates ripples. They help others, who help others, who help others. Grace multiplies. Compassion compounds. Investment in people generates returns that can't be measured on a balance sheet. Diego walked back to center stage. Michael Jordan taught me this, but he learned it from his mother, Dolores Jordan. She's the one who bought that vase. She's the one who taught him that people matter more than things. And even though she passed away before I met her, her wisdom has touched thousands of lives through what she taught her son. He gestured to the empty seat with the rose. Mrs. Jordan, if you can hear me somehow, I want you to know, your lesson lived. It grew. It multiplied. You taught your son to value people over possessions, and he taught me, and I've taught thousands, and they'll teach thousands more. Your vase broke, but your legacy is unbreakable. The audience erupted in applause. Michael stood, his eyes glistening with tears, and the entire auditorium stood with him, applauding for a woman they'd never met but whose wisdom had changed the world. When the applause subsided and people sat back down, Diego continued, I want to talk about fear. 10 years ago, I was afraid of everything. Afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of not being good enough. And you know what? I still feel those fears sometimes. Even now, even with all this success, I sometimes wake up at 3 in the morning convinced I'm going to mess everything up. He smiled ruefully. But I've learned that fear is just information. It tells me that I care about what I'm doing, that the stakes matter, that I'm pushing myself beyond my comfort zone. Fear isn't the enemy. Letting fear make my decisions, that's the enemy. Diego looked at the students again. So when you're afraid to apply for that job or that school or that opportunity because you think your past disqualifies you, feel the fear, acknowledge it, then do it anyway. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking action despite fear. He paused, then added quietly, and if you fail, if you make mistakes, if you fall flat on your face, you'll learn something, you'll grow. You'll become stronger, and someone, somewhere, might give you a second chance to try again. Diego gestured to the screen, which now showed a time-lapse video of a seed growing into a plant. Roots pushing down, shoots pushing up, leaves unfurling. This is what happens in soil, in darkness, in conditions that look hostile to life. The seed breaks open, literally shatters, so the plant can emerge. Breaking is necessary for growth. Destruction precedes creation. Endings enable beginnings. The plant in the video bloomed, flowers opening in brilliant color. That's what happened to me. I had to break, had to shatter my assumptions about who I was and what I deserved before I could grow into who I was meant to become. Diego clicked to a final image, himself at 19, kneeling in broken crystal, compared to himself now, standing confidently on stage. 10 years, same person, completely different life. Not because I became someone else, but because someone helped me become more fully myself. Because someone invested in my potential instead of punishing my mistake. He looked at Michael. That's what I'm asking all of you to do. Look for the people who are broken and scared and convinced they're worthless. The ones who've made mistakes. The ones who think their story is over. And invest in them. Believe in them. Show them that their worst moment can become their best opportunity. Diego's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Because somewhere in this room, or somewhere watching this speech later, there's someone who feels exactly like I felt 10 years ago. Worthless, hopeless, convinced that one mistake has ruined everything. And they need to hear this message. You matter. Your potential is real. Your story isn't over. And someone, somewhere, will give you a chance if you're brave enough to keep showing up. He stepped back from the microphone, then forward again. I'm going to close with a challenge. Everyone in this room has power, whether it's the power to hire someone, teach someone, mentor someone, or just believe in someone. Use that power to give second chances. Look past mistakes to see potential. Choose people over things. Diego's voice grew passionate. And if you're the person who needs a second chance, if you're the one carrying shame and fear and regret, I'm here to tell you, it's not too late. Your mistakes don't define you. Your past doesn't determine your future. Start showing up. Start trying. Start believing that you deserve another chance. Because you do. He looked out at the audience one final time. 10 years ago, a crystal vase shattered on a marble floor. That sound was destruction, but it was also creation. It was an ending and a beginning. It was loss and gain. It was tragedy and opportunity, all at once. Diego smiled. That's life. That's growth. That's transformation. Things break. People break. Dreams break. But from those broken pieces, if we have courage and someone believes in us, we can create something more beautiful than what existed before. The vase that sat on a pedestal touched one life, Michael Jordan's. The broken vase transformed into gardens, in centers and programs has touched 20,000 lives and counting. That's not loss, that's multiplication. That's grace becoming greater through breaking. Diego picked up the medal he'd been awarded, the Presidential Medal for Community Service, and held it up. This medal is beautiful. I'm honored to receive it. But you know what I value more? He gestured to Rosa, to his team, to Michael, to all the people who'd been part of his journey. These relationships, these lives changed and changing, these ripples that will continue long after I'm gone. This proof that choosing people over things creates legacies that can't be measured or contained. He set the medal down and spoke his final words. Thank you for listening to the story of a broken vase. Thank you for believing that second chances matter. And thank you for being the kind of people who will extend grace to others the way grace was extended to me. Because that's how we change the world. Not through perfection, but through compassion. Not by avoiding mistakes, but by learning from them. Not by giving up on broken people, but by believing they can become whole again. The vase broke 10 years ago, but the lesson it taught will last forever. People over things, potential over mistakes, second chances over condemnation. That's Dolores Jordan's legacy. That's Michael Jordan's gift. That's my promise, and I hope it becomes yours too. Diego stepped back from the microphone and bowed slightly. The audience rose as one, applauding so loudly the sound was almost overwhelming. But Diego barely heard it. He was looking at Rosa, who was crying and smiling simultaneously, her hand over her heart. He was looking at Michael, who was clapping with tears streaming down his face, mouthing the words, "Thank you." He was looking at Aisha and Marcus Jr., and Ramon and Keisha and Darius, and all the people whose lives were intertwined with his, whose transformations proved that second chances work. And he was thinking about a scared 19-year-old boy, kneeling in broken glass, certain his life was over, having no idea that his greatest blessing was about to come from his worst mistake. That boy was gone now, In his place stood a man who understood what Dolores Jordan had known, what Michael had proved, and what Diego would spend his life teaching. Broken things can become beautiful. Mistakes can become miracles. And grace, when given freely, multiplies forever. After the ceremony, as people gathered for the reception, Diego found himself alone for a moment in a quiet hallway. He looked down at the medal in his hands, feeling its weight. Footsteps approached. Michael. "Powerful speech," Michael said. "You told the truth, the whole truth. That took courage. I learned from the best." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "You know what my mother would say if she'd heard that speech?" Michael asked. "What?" "She'd say, 'See, Michael, I told you that vase was special, not because it was crystal, but because of what it could teach.' She'd be so proud of what you've done with that lesson." Diego felt emotion rising in his chest again. "I wish I could have met her." "You have met her," Michael said gently. "Every time you extend grace to someone who doesn't deserve it, every time you choose people over things, every time you give a second chance, you're meeting her, you're living her values, you're continuing her legacy." That's a beautiful way to think about it. "It's the truth." Michael paused. "Can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" "Of course." "The night after you broke that vase, I almost changed my mind. I almost decided to fire you anyway, make you pay for it, take the traditional approach. I was angry. That vase meant so much to me." Diego's eyes widened. "What changed your mind?" "I had a dream about my mother. In the dream, she was standing in that hallway, looking at the broken vase. I apologized to her, told her I was sorry someone had destroyed her gift, and she laughed." Michael's voice grew soft. "She said, 'Michael, did you learn nothing from me? That vase was never the gift. The gift was the lesson. And now you have a chance to pass that lesson on. Don't waste it being angry about broken glass.' Then she picked up a piece of the crystal and it turned into a seed. She planted it and a garden grew." Diego felt chills run down his spine. "I woke up with complete clarity about what I needed to do. The dream wasn't subtle. She basically told me to stop being stupid and see the opportunity." Michael smiled. "She was like that. Never one for gentle hints when direct truth would do." "I'm glad you listened to her." "So am I. Because look what happened. Look at what that one choice created." They heard laughter from the reception. People sharing stories, making connections, planning collaborations. "It's still growing," Diego said. "The ripples are still spreading. People I've never met are being touched by this lesson because they heard it from someone I taught, who heard it from someone you taught. It's exponential. That's how truth works when it's genuine. It spreads itself. All we have to do is live it." Rosa appeared, being pushed in her wheelchair by Aisha. "There you are," Rosa said. "Hiding from your own party?" "Just taking a moment, Abuela." "Well, your moment is over. People want to talk to you, important people. Stop hiding." Diego laughed. "Yes, ma'am." As Aisha wheeled Rosa back toward the reception, the elderly woman called over her shoulder, "And Michael, you too. Stop enabling his shyness." Michael grinned. "She's fierce. She's 84 years old and still running my life. And you love it." "And I love it," Diego agreed. They walked back toward the reception together. At the doorway, Diego stopped. "Michael, one more thing." "Yeah. If I ever write a book about all this, about the vase and the centers and the lessons, would you write the foreword?" Michael considered this. "On one condition." "What's that?" "You dedicate it to 3 people. Your grandmother, your parents, and my mother. The people who taught us, through their words or their absence, what really matters." Diego extended his hand. "Deal." They shook on it, sealing a promise that would result 3 years later in a best-selling book that spread the lesson even further, touching millions of lives, inspiring countless second chances, proving that one broken vase could change the world. But that's another story. For now, Diego had a reception to attend, people to thank, and connections to make. He had gardens to build and lives to change and grace to multiply. He had a promise to keep, the promise he'd made 10 years ago when Michael Jordan first believed in him. The promise to never forget where he came from, to honor the second chance he'd been given, and to spend his life ensuring that others received the same grace. It was a promise he'd kept so far, and it was a promise he would keep forever. Because people matter more than things, because mistakes are not endings, and because broken things in the right hands with the right heart can become more beautiful than they ever were whole. A crystal vase had shattered, but from those broken pieces grew gardens of hope, and they would keep growing, forever. So that's the incredible true story of how a broken vase became a movement of hope and second chances. Diego's one terrible mistake transformed into 15 community centers, helping over 20,000 people find new opportunities. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you're helping us spread these powerful messages of kindness and compassion to people all around the world who need to hear them. Remember, everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone has potential worth investing in. And sometimes the most beautiful transformations come from the most broken moments. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now to watch another inspiring story that will remind you why kindness always wins. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.